Hey guys. This is part 5 of What If Naruto Was Sasori's Disciple. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 11, Two of a Kind. Team 7's vacation was anything but relaxing for Naruto. People of Konoha have gotten into their heads that the destruction of the Land of the Waves was Naruto's doing, and he couldn't step out of the apartment without hearing various paranoid mutterings. In all fairness, it wasn't exactly a coincidence that Akatsuki destroyed the country right after he left, but he could hardly be faulted for that. He was only defending himself. Aggravated and more than a little worried for his safety, Naruto sat down one day and designed the most powerful and sophisticated sensor seal he could, putting it on the back of his Hitite. It was so powerful that not even Naruto had enough chakra at any one time to compress it. Instead, he had to make 3 separate chakra storage seals, each one capable of holding roughly 75% of his maximum chakra reserves, and use those as raw components when compressing the array. The situational awareness it afforded him was downright obscene, so obscene that he blacked out the first time he put on the Hitite at his forehead. In retrospect, putting the seal on when he was still in Konoha proper, surrounded by thousands of people, many of them ninja, was kind of unwise. It took him a week to get used to it somewhat, this time in an abandoned training ground, and he actually had to lock away some of the functionality for the time being, lest he inflict permanent brain damage on himself. Still, even a diminished seal turned him into a chakra sensor, increased his already impressive chakra control, and initial testing on captured animals showed his medical techniques were twice as potent as before. He really should have done this ages ago. Once again he had to thank Kiba for his massive chakra reserves and increased chakra regeneration. The design of the sensor seal wasn't all that ingenious, but the number of people who had the chakra reserves to compress a seal like that was small. Even if they tried the same trick he did, of using chakra storage seals as an intermediate step, they would find it to be a lengthy process without the Kiba-supplied ability to replenish their chakra in full over the course of a single night. This sort of thing was why he always felt bad when his friends praised him for his sealing ability. In the world or ordinary ninja, the really tricky part of sealing wasn't figuring out a way to do something with seals. It was figuring out how to do it in an economical way, such that you actually have enough chakra to compress the array. Seal masters used all sorts of clever little tricks and ingenious workarounds to cut down on the chakra usage and make something a real person could actually make without killing themselves. But not Naruto. He just made the simplest, most straightforward design he could think of. His chakra reserves were almost always enough, but there were things that couldn't be solved through brute force. Naruto's sealing experiments were something that he had no manual for, and thus required careful thought, and therefore time. Naruto didn't have time. Akatsuki's latest excursion against him proved that in spades. He needed to get a lot stronger, fast, and as far as he could see, sealing and puppeteering were his best bet, if only he could find the time to properly design his next batch of puppets and sealing items. Thinking these kind of thoughts, Naruto slipped into uneasy sleep, only to wake up staring into the face of Kyubi no Kitsune glaring at him through the bars of its cage. "Why have you brought me here?" Naruto asked curiously. The fox never really did this ever since aftermath of his fight with Mizuki. "You said you needed more time," rumbled the giant fox, pacing behind its cage. "So here you are." Naruto raised his eyebrow in a silent question, failing to see how being brought here helped him any. "Honestly, monkey boy, just when I think you can't possibly get any more oblivious," Kyubi growled. "Did you honestly not notice that no time passed in the real world while you spoke to me last time?" Naruto's eyes widened at the implications. "No, I must admit I hadn't," said Naruto carefully. "I was unconscious at the time, a concept that the Bijou are probably unfamiliar with. You little gnats have so many limitations it's hard to keep track of them all," Kyubi scoffed. "Right," said Naruto, refusing to take the bait. The last time he got in the discussion with the Kyubi about the merits of humanity, he had found that the fox was a bottomless well of scorn and arrogance where humans are concerned, and trying to convince it otherwise was like trying to talk to a brick wall. "So let's see if I got this correctly. I could spend as long as I wish here and no time at all will pass in the outside world?" "Not as long as you like," Kyubi said with a mocking grin. "As you've so diligently reminded me, you monkey people need to rest your feeble little minds from time to time. You will need to return to your body to sleep at regular intervals. But as long as you don't mind sleeping all day long in the real world, you may cram as much as 3 to 4 days worth of experiences in every single day." Naruto thought about it. While he didn't really intend to go that far, His muscles would atrophy if he slept all day long. Fitting in an extra 12 to 16 hours a day should be easily doable. So what exactly can I do here? Asked Naruto. If I practiced a technique or two, would this translate into the outside world? Of course not, stated Kyubi. This place is your mindscape. You body, and indeed anything present here, is but a figment of your imagination. Things happen here according to your whim, regardless of your actual capabilities. All you can do here is think, but if you had any creativity at all in that thick skull of yours, you'd realize this was already a major boon. But I suppose that's too much to expect from a kid whose imagination turned his mind into a fucking sewer. Ignoring the fox's jabs, Naruto frowned and concentrated. A giant scroll popped into existence in front of him, hovering in the air. Unrolling it and staring at its blank surface, Naruto traced a finger across the paper, causing lines and symbols to appear, just as if he had been using a brush. Wow, he breathed out. You don't really need to write with your fingers, stupid, complained the fox. Just will it, and it will happen. Naruto glanced at the fox in acknowledgement before stepping back and thinking of a simple sealing array. Symbols exploded across the paper, arranging themselves into a proper pattern. Adjusting the array was as simple as thinking about the desired changes. Naruto laughed quietly, his mirth resonating across the near-empty hall. This was perfect. He could spend hours in this place, designing seals and puppets, surfacing occasionally to try them out in the outside world. He yawned and felt his connection to this place waver. Shaking his head, he turned around and walked out of the hall, not even bothering to say goodbye to the fox. This was amazing and everything, but he had been trying to sleep for a reason. He was tired. He had plenty of time later, after all. The additional time granted to Naruto due to Shiki Fujin turned out to be very fortunate, because soon after his talk with the Kyubi, Kabuto came out of hiding to help him hone his medic nin skills. Surprisingly, Kabuto insisted they make no effort in hiding their meetings. Apparently he was ready to meet with the Hokage when the aging Hokage finally takes notice of his sessions with Naruto, and claimed caution would only slow down their work. Kabuto didn't actually teach him any new techniques. Instead, his sessions consisted either of taijutsu spars, where Kabuto tried to teach him how to use his medical knowledge in close-quarters combat, or with Naruto following Kabuto around during his hospital rounds as his assistant. This definitely raised some eyebrows, but Naruto was pleasantly surprised by the patients and staff in the hospital. Once Naruto demonstrated his skills as a medic nin, he was accepted fairly quickly. There were a few individuals that absolutely refused to be treated by Naruto, but it was far better than Naruto thought. Apparently there was a considerable shortage of medic nins, and beggars can't be choosers. The gray-haired medic also brought him a couple of notebooks from Sasori, all of which were coded into incomprehensibility. It took Naruto 2 boring days to translate them into readable text, but his anger at Sasori immediately disappeared when he saw what they contained. Techniques, that bastard. He told Naruto he doesn't know any ninjutsu. Though in retrospect, Naruto had to admit he was a dumbass to believe him. How exactly does one get to be as powerful as Sasori without ever learning a single technique? And in Sasori's defense, these techniques were really only useful to puppeteers. All in all, there was 15 techniques hidden in those notes. The first 3 were meant as help when creating puppet parts from raw materials, using wind chakra to cut and shear pieces of wood into required shapes, and these were possibly the most useful for Naruto, as he could now finally make new puppets without relying on Sasori for parts. It was a pity that these wind techniques required lots of concentration to use because, judging by the ease with which they cut through wood, they would be very useful in combat. The rest of the techniques did a multitude of nifty things, such as allowing the puppeteer to see through his puppet's eyes or pulling a broken puppet together again. All of these techniques required the puppet specifically made with them in mind, but fortunately Sasori's notes included the necessary information for this as well. But as excited as he was with his new capabilities as a puppeteer, he didn't neglect his medic nin skills, not the least because Kabuto didn't take kindly to being ignored. At the moment he was waiting for Kabuto to meet him at their standard meeting spot, and he was engrossed in a subject that captured his attention lately. Without so much as a blink, Naruto slashed the kunai across his arm, creating a deep cut that immediately began gushing blood. Then, he reached deep into the core of his being, ignoring the shudder of anticipation from his own chakra, and pulled on the seal that bound the Kyubi in him. The Kyubi relinquished a clump of chakra for his use readily. Actually, the real challenge was convincing the fox that he wanted just a clump, not a whole tail's worth, and Naruto guided the foreign chakra into the tissue surrounding the wound. He watched in fascination as the wound stitched itself up in seconds. The ability to Kyubi's chakra to repair tissue was amazing. It wasn't just a matter of pouring massive amounts of chakra into the afflicted area, because even a minute amount of Kyuubi's chakra could heal 100 times more effectively than he could with his medical skills, if he could understand enough of the process to copy the Yuki's healing effects with his medical techniques. The fox scoffed in the back of his mind. Kyuubi was stubbornly trying to convince him to get accustomed to drawing his tainted chakra, but Naruto had no intention of doing that. Kyuubi's Yuki did more than heal him, it affected his mind, making him rash and aggressive. His fighting style didn't mesh well with the berserker tactics that came with the use of demonic chakra, and the foreign chakra swimming in his chakra coils messed up his control for days afterwards. Plus, he couldn't shake the feeling that intensive usage of that stuff had some nasty long-term consequence. Call it an intuition, so usage of Kyuubi's chakra in regular combat was out of the question. But figuring out how it works in order to develop a safer alternative with less side effects, however watered down it may be, was A-OK in Naruto's book. He was just about to make another gash in his arm when Kabuto's voice stopped him. Now, Naruto-kun," Kabuto said with way too much amusement. "No matter what happened, there are better ways to deal with it than by cutting yourself. Why don't you put the knife down and tell Uncle Kabuto what's bothering you?" Naruto rolled his eyes at the comment. "Shut up, Kabuto. If you must know, I'm trying to copy Kyuubi's regenerative abilities with medical chakra." Kabuto looked at him curiously. "Really?" Naruto took Kabuto's expression as an invitation to explain. "Human body resists against an intrusion of unknown chakra into itself, right?" asked Naruto. Kabuto nodded. "That's why medic-neens have to exert so much effort to convert their chakra into medical chakra that can penetrate the target's system more easily," continued Naruto. "But even medical chakra wastes a lot of its power trying to overcome the body's defenses, to mention nothing of the loss during conversion of regular chakra into medical one. So why exactly are medic-neens using techniques and medical chakra to heal our own wounds? There has to be a better way. I mean, all the medical textbooks state that the bigger chakra reserves a person has, the faster they heal. So obviously the body already has some mechanism for using chakra reserves to accelerate healing. Why not take advantage of that? The Kyuubi's chakra proves that it's possible, and I'm going to find out how." Kabuto smiled. "You do realize most people use a fully manned and stocked research facility to research a topic like that?" "Yeah, well, most people aren't the Kyuubi Jinchuriki," said Naruto dismissively, "and most people didn't have the Byakugan-derived diagnostic techniques like the ones he developed with Hinata. Even if Naruto couldn't see other people's chakra coils, he could sense his own. And if he was allowed to seep in medical chakra into someone, he could somewhat sense their chakra circulatory system as well, especially now that he had his sensor seal." He wasn't going to tell this to Kabuto, though. While the gray-haired medic-neen was reliable, the less people know about that the better. Hinata would be subject to stiff penalties from her clan if they somehow found out she helped Naruto develop those techniques, regardless whether it was technically allowed or not. Kabuto grinned. "Tell you what, Naruto-kun, I was looking for another challenge to tackle anyway. I'll lend you another pair of hands and eyes, and maybe we can solve that little mystery together, HM? Who knows, maybe we can discover how to duplicate other properties of the Kyuubi's chakra, like enhanced strength. Tsunade already proved it was possible." "Sure!" grinned Naruto. He had heard a lot about Tsunade's technique, and being able to snap a tree with a finger flick sounded hell awesome. "No problems with me." "Oh good," said Kabuto. "You know, I'm glad that we can finally work together, Naruto-kun. Being all alone in this laboratory with nothing but dead bodies for company, it can get rather lonely." Naruto's smile twisted itself into a sour expression. He tried not to think what Kabuto might be implying. More than likely, it was just a ploy to get a rise out of him. He was like Enko that way. May the heavens have mercy on them all should those two ever meet. "So what are we going to do now?" asked Naruto. "You seem far too happy for this to be a normal training session," said Kabuto. "You're quite right, Naruto-kun. Today, we're going to fight." Naruto frowned. "You mean spar?" No, Kabuto insisted. "Fight. Like you did with Enko and Sasori-sama a while back. Anything is allowed." Naruto chuckled uneasily. "Kabuto, I'm not sure you want to do that. I don't mean to belittle your skills, but I can be pretty nasty when I fight. I've been told I'm pretty scary when I set myself loose." Only Naruto's extensive experience in evading Enko's and Sasori's surprise attacks allowed Naruto to jump back and avoid a blindingly fast attack Kabuto tried to execute on him. He stumbled back in shock and glared at the gray-haired man. "What the fuck, Kabuto?" Naruto protested. You could have." Naruto stopped talking and grimaced. Kabuto knew exactly what he was doing. He tried to slice his carotid arteries with chakra scalpels, not an immediately lethal move, but one that would quickly end his life if not healed with utmost haste. What a coincidence, said Kabuto with a mad gleam in his eyes. I'm also told that I'm pretty scary when I set myself loose. Playtime is over, Naruto-kun. Show me what you've got. And with that, Kabuto lunged forward, his hands glowing with an eerie blue light. Annoyed and eager to teach Kabuto a lesson, Naruto pressed his hands into a single hand seal, activating his clone superimposition technique. Unfortunately for him, it turned out Kabuto knew more than just medical techniques. The moment he saw Naruto bring his hands into his clone seal, he flipped through a handful of seals with blinding speed, sending a bolt of electricity straight into Naruto's chest. It was a weak technique, and did very little damage, but Naruto's concentration was ruined as his muscles momentarily spasmed. His technique failed, and he moved too slow to evade Kabuto's follow-up attack which sliced the tendons in his right arm. Fuck. Still, Naruto had a few surprises of his own. As Kabuto was about to withdraw his hand after the successful attack, the bandages on Naruto's arm lashed out and wrapped around the offending limb. Were a Byakugan user around, they would have seen the faint chakra strings that controlled the bandages, but no such people were present. Naruto swung his hand like a flail, throwing Kabuto into the ground, or would have, if Kabuto hadn't oriented himself perfectly for the fall and lashed out at Naruto the moment he hit the ground. His hand still caught in the bandages, Kabuto struck at Naruto with his foot, aiming to knock the air out of his lungs. Naruto simply used his other hand to block. The bandages on that arm unfurled into a shield of sorts. That's when Naruto noticed the little telltale signs of a lightning technique about to fire, and immediately let go of Kabuto. Suddenly freed, Kabuto stumbled back, overshooting. A bolt of electricity, stronger than before, flew above Naruto's shoulder, a few stray arcs sending jolts of pain across Naruto's face. With one of his arms ruined and no time to heal it, Naruto knew he didn't stand a chance against Kabuto. Well, he didn't stand a chance one way or another really. He supposed he was an idiot to believe someone who hangs around Sasori was a pushover, but there was just no indication that Kabuto was anything other than a rather creepy medicine. Seeing him fight though, Naruto could tell that he was strong enough to give Kakashi a run for his money. That initial strike that ruined his arm could have easily been a killing blow, and, though his movements were very fluid, he could tell that the man wasn't using all the advantages his adult body provided him against Naruto. But Naruto was never the one to quit just because he was faced with a superior opponent. He stood motionless as Kabuto lunged at him again, hiding his hand behind his back so Kabuto would not see his fingers twitching. A couple of birds that have been watching the battle with a curious amount of intensity suddenly rose into the air before diving straight at Kabuto. By the time Kabuto noticed them, it was too late. He tried to dodge but they followed, an array of seals inscribed over their bodies beginning to glow. Naruto guided them into spots that he judged to be incapacitating but not lethal and, with a final pull of the chakra strings, made the birds explode. Suicide zombie birds is a nice name for that technique, I think, mumbled Naruto. Birds weren't the only animals whose corpses Naruto turned into puppets of sorts, but they were the most useful ones, due to their ability to fly. He could use them as spies by looking through their eyes, or as weapons by making them explode at his command. The really useful thing about them was that they weren't really puppets in the classical sense, in that they required only general instructions through the chakra strings. Much of what they did was autonomous, even if they lacked initiative to do anything in the absence of his orders. Amazingly, Kabuto was still standing when the smoke cleared. Large portions of his shirt was missing, and there was a nasty burn on his stomach, but the man was still standing. In fact, he seemed to be getting better each second. It was as if his wounds were mending themselves right before his eyes. What? Blurted out Naruto. Kabuto, are you? How do you do that? That was a neat trick, Naruto-kun, said Kabuto with a ragged voice, ignoring the question. I guess I underestimated you somewhat. Why don't you heal your arm so we can start over? Naruto was about to answer when a dozen or so chakra signatures entered his sphere of awareness. Someone is coming, said Naruto. Someone strong. I think it's the old man, plus a few escorts. Kabuto straightened himself immediately. Ho, so they finally noticed our meetings, did they? Took them long enough. Naruto nodded. Considering how blatant Kabuto was about introducing him to various hospital personnel, he had expected the old man to haul both of them into his office within a day or two at most. He's probably been discreetly gathering information on you all this time and is now ready to act, said Naruto. Probably, agreed Kabuto. Are you going to be alright? asked Naruto worriedly. Maybe this was a bad idea. Don't worry, Naruto. I am a spy by profession, said Kabuto, adjusting his glasses. His wounds were all but gone by now, and the only sign of his injury was the ruined shirt that still hung off his shoulders. Hush, said Naruto. They'll be here any second now. Amusingly, though their visitors had rushed towards them with obvious haste, they stopped in their tracks some distance away and split up. The strongest chakra signature, which Naruto assumed was Old Man, started walking towards them at a leisurely pace, while the others dispersed throughout the training ground, probably intending to stay hidden. Damn, the sensor seal was awesome. Old Man, nice of you to drop by, shouted Naruto the moment the old Hokage stepped into the clearing, probably ruining his dramatic entrance. Did you come to see me kick Kabuto's ass? Well, the old man tried, clearly unnerved by the fact that Naruto and Kabuto were aware that he was coming. I had heard that Naruto found himself a new teacher, and I figured it wouldn't hurt to meet him. I'm not interrupting anything, am I? Oh no, we were just finished practicing, said Kabuto with a pleasant smile. And I wouldn't exactly call myself new. I have been Naruto's mentor for over a year now. Naruto resisted the urge to laugh at Old Man's shocked expression. Not that it was easy to notice the shock on the old Hokage's stoic face, but Naruto knew him too well to miss it. The aging leader, however, quickly regained his composure and took a good hard look at Kabuto. Must have been one hell of a practice, Old Man remarked, looking curiously at Kabuto's ruined shirt. I'm afraid Naruto is quite fond of explosives, said Kabuto in an apologetic tone. It makes it difficult to survive these practice sessions without consequences. Indeed, the Hokage agreed suspiciously. Kabuto-san, if you're not doing anything important, could you accompany me to my office? I would like to discuss things with you. Of course, Hokage-sama, said Kabuto in a mildly confused tone, waving his goodbyes to Naruto and following after the aging leader. Naruto snorted softly. If he didn't know any better, he would have honestly thought that Kabuto had no idea what the old man wanted to talk to him about. He was one hell of an actor, that's for sure. With a heavy sigh, he sat down on the grass. He didn't feel like doing anything today after this, especially since one of the old man's escorts remained behind to monitor him. Everything was so confusing lately. Sasori and Kabuto weren't enemies of Konoha, but he knew there was no chance in hell he could convince the Hokage of that, so he kept it a secret all this time. And now his entire life was just one big lie. There was no one who knew everything important about him, not the Hokage, not his team, not his friends. Not even Sasori. Is he going to hide those things forever? Surely he couldn't, if he really wanted to become Hokage. And if the whole thing gets discovered one of his days, which side would he choose? He had a distinct sense he wouldn't like the answer to that. Sensing a familiar chakra signature approaching and then stopping in the trees to observe him, Naruto rose up from the ground and dusted himself off. What's with everyone wanting to see me today? Mumbled Naruto to himself. He cleared his throat before speaking loud enough for the newcomer to hear him. All right, you can come out now if you want to talk to me. Naruto waited for a few seconds, noticing with amusement that both chakra signatures around him shifted uncomfortably. Not you, Anbu-san, chuckled Naruto, waving in the direction of the escort left behind by the old man. He pointed towards the newcomer on the opposite end of the small clearing. I'm talking about Sakura, of course. There was several more moments of silence before Sakura jumped down from her tree. Naruto felt the Anbu withdraw deeper into the trees but not leaving completely, probably thinking he was out of range of Naruto's senses. Heh, so, asked Naruto as Sakura approached. What can I do for you, oh dearest teammate? Sakura looked uncomfortable and took a deep breath before speaking. I'd like to ask you for help with my training, Naruto, she said. Naruto stared incredulously. Did Sakura just ask him for help? Wow, said Naruto, rubbing his chin. You're asking someone other than Sasuke for help? Forgive me, I need to sit down for a moment. Naruto, please, she pleaded, another first as far as Naruto was concerned. I'm really serious. I'm trying to make up for lost time, but it's not going fast enough. I'll never catch up to you two at this rate. Sakura, it's only been 2 weeks since we returned from Wave, pointed out Naruto. What did you really expect from mere 2 weeks of training? Less than that, actually, admitted Sakura. But I can already tell it's going to take me forever to get anywhere at this rate. And you think I can help you advance faster? Asked Naruto skeptically. Yes, she said firmly, but something about her voice made alarm bells ring in Naruto's head. How? He demanded. She began, twirling her fingers and refusing to look him in the eye. It reminded him of Hinata somewhat. Kakashi-sensei gave me these texts on chakra control, and there was a mention of this technique. Ys? Prompted Naruto. It allows the user to absorb another's chakra. Ah, said Naruto in understanding. He was curious how the girl managed to procure the technique, but he supposed everyone was entitled to their little secrets. Let me get this straight. You want me to hang around you while you train so you can drain my chakra every once in a while and thus continue training for longer? Yes, she nodded. Plus heal me if I go overboard. I twisted my ankle 4 days ago, and it took 2 days for an actual medic needing to go down his waiting list and have it healed. Little injuries like that aren't a priority to the hospital, and it turns out medic needs like you are pretty scarce. Yeah, go figure, said Naruto. Look, Sakura, I'm not really opposed to this in principle. Kami knows I have no shortage of chakra. But really, following you around for hours on end and serving as a living chakra battery is so boring and bothersome. Why exactly would I agree to something like that? Sakura took a deep breath, clearly having expected something like this. Remember Zabuza and his assistant? She asked. Don't remind me, said Naruto, a sour expression on his face. What about them? Well, Sasuke fought against that Haku person when we were rescuing you. Anyway, he copied the hidden mist technique from him with his Sharingan. I got him to teach it to me. If you agree to help me, I will teach you the technique. Naruto eyed her incredulously. You got Sasuke to teach you a technique? Yeah, how the hell did you do that? Asked Naruto, honestly curious. I promised I'll stop asking him out for a month if he does, said Sakura with a blush. Naruto stared at her, stupefied. Was this really Sakura? Damn, well, said Naruto carefully. I guess that technique will be enough to pay for a month of being used as a living battery/band-aid combo. We'll see where we go from there. Great, Sakura said, cheering up suddenly. Come at training ground 7 at 8 o'clock tomorrow. Don't be late like Kakashi, and then she skipped away, disappeared into the trees. Naruto snorted lightly and shook his head. It was times like these that reminded him why he used to like Sakura so much before Sasori. For good or bad, everything changed with Sasori. Don't worry, Sakura-chan, he mumbled to the wind. I hate making people wait. Is there something wrong, Hokage-sama? Sarutobi studied the face of the gray-haired man sitting in his office. Yakushi Kabuto seemed moderately nervous, not an unusual reaction of being suddenly escorted into Hokage's office with no explanation, but didn't seem to be feeling guilty about anything. If anything, he seemed honestly puzzled as to the reason of his questioning. Sarutobi didn't know whether to be relieved or disappointed. When he found out about Kabuto, he thought that Naruto had finally gotten careless, but Kabuto's record was spotless. He had been in Konoha for years before Naruto's sudden shift in personality and abilities, had no obvious connections to other villages, and was generally described as a pleasant, if withdrawn, person by those who knew him. The man was technically still a genin, but every evaluator remarked that Kabuto was a solid chunin in terms of actual capability. It was the right mindset that he lacked. The man simply lacked the determination and aggressiveness that a chunin was supposed to have. Quite frankly, Sarutobi intended to simply promote him to chunin by fiat after the upcoming chunin exams. Regardless of how he did, they needed medics of Kabuto's skill out in the field, doing more than simple C ranks, and having him bumble through yet another chunin exam only to quit at the very end would just hurt Konoha's reputation. Kami knows plenty of ninjas have become chunin on far shakier grounds. I was hoping to get that answer from Kabuto-san, said Sarutobi carefully. I must admit I was surprised to find out about your lessons with Uzumaki Naruto. He and I are very close, and he never mentioned you. Kabuto seemed taken aback at this. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to teach him. I thought that teaching medical techniques was exempt from standard bans against teaching genin. Sarutobi was somewhat surprised Kabuto even knew about that. The law, while full of blanket statements, only really concerned itself with those of chunin and above in actual practice. The assumption was that a genin doesn't know anything truly dangerous or sensitive, and doesn't have the time or experience to teach things anyway. It was only once they reached higher ranks that ninja were made aware of various restrictions they need to follow when teaching people techniques. It is, agreed Sarutobi. We have a shortage of medic needs as it is. But it seems to me you didn't just teach him medical techniques. Sarutobi glanced at Kabuto's ruined shirt, and the man had the decency to look flustered. Kabuto gave him a nervous laugh and tried to explain. That wasn't part of the training, actually, said Kabuto. I was just trying to teach Naruto how to use medical techniques in the middle of a combat situation. Unfortunately, Naruto tends to be very destructive when fighting. Personally, I'd prefer if he didn't use explosives. They sort of defeat the purpose of the exercise. You could always just disallow it, remarked Sarutobi. Ah well, said Kabuto. I've been told I need to be more aggressive, so if I can't even handle a particularly vicious genin, what chance do I have of finally passing my next genin exams? Said Sarutobi thoughtfully. Do you mind if I ask some questions about your training with Naruto? Not at all, agreed Kabuto quickly. What do you want to know? Well, for a start, why don't you tell me how you and Naruto met? Sarutobi tried, smiling good-naturedly. He noted with satisfaction that Kabuto's anxiety seemed to disappear in an instant. That is, of course it did. It was the smile, and Sarutobi spent several years getting it right. It always worked. Kabuto cleared his throat. Well, it was more than a year ago, I think. I don't remember the exact date. He was still an academy student back then, and he came to me complaining about his poor chakra control. He told me he'd heard medic-neens have to practice their chakra control intensively, and wondered if I could help him improve his own, the standard leaf exercise not having appreciable effect apparently. Kabuto paused for a moment, frowning. Years of experience told Sarutobi that the medic was about to frame something in a more favorable light through careful language. Fortunately, unweaving the web of bullshit most ninja like to spin around their actions was one of Sarutobi's specialties. I was skeptical about his resolve because of the things I overheard about him. He had a bit of a reputation, and not in a good way. Nonetheless, I wasn't ready to just dismiss him out of hand. Too few ninja are interested in my line of work, and I figured couldn't afford to be too picky. Still, I wasn't ready to make too much personal commitment into his case, so I settled for giving him a scroll full of medic-nin chakra control exercises, said Kabuto, before adding quickly. There was nothing really sensitive there, mind you, but it wasn't something that most genin, or even higher ranks learn. They don't need to, and it takes years to go through them. I said so to the boy, but he insisted he would have them all mastered before he graduates from the academy. It was quite an ambitious proclamation, Sarutobi smiled. That sounded like Naruto, all right. I was skeptical, but I didn't discourage him, said Kabuto, already earning a few points in the Hokage's book. I figured that even trying would be a learning experience. I didn't really think he would go far, but he soon proved me wrong. Naruto is an exceptionally tenacious individual. He worked very hard on mastering those exercises, even after his original goal of mastering the clone technique was achieved. I was so impressed, in fact, that I offered to train him in the arts of the medic-nin. And he agreed? Asked the Hokage. Oh yes, agreed Kabuto enthusiastically. Very few people seemed willing to give him the time of day. I got the notion that he didn't have much to occupy his time with, aside from planning pranks and training. And since I was the only one who offered to train him in anything substantial, well, we all take the chances we're given. Sarutobi couldn't help but feel a little guilty hearing things like that. He could have probably arranged for the boy to be taught some basics to occupy his time with, so he wouldn't feel the need to seek aid from total strangers. Kabuto seemed nice, but Sarutobi didn't feel comfortable leaving Naruto's education in the hands of someone who wasn't extensively vetted and approved beforehand. The fact that Kabuto had a whole year of unsupervised contact with the blonde didn't sit well with Sarutobi, and since Naruto knew far more than medical techniques, it was safe to say that Kabuto wasn't the only secret teacher Naruto found. How could he have missed something that big? He should have checked on Naruto more often, but he was so busy, and when Naruto stopped being a problem, he just sort of faded through the cracks of his immediate attention. You must be quite a teacher to get Naruto interested in something as demanding as medical techniques, Kabuto-san, said the Hokage. Well, no, countered Kabuto. Like I said, he seemed to feel I was the only chance to learn something. He had this strange idea that even when he graduates, his Jounin sensei will refuse to teach him anything. Like the village conspired to keep him away from anything even remotely dangerous. I don't know. Quite paranoid for an academy student, but then again we all have our little quirks. Sarutobi struggled to keep a straight face. Because it was absolutely correct that Kakashi was instructed not to teach Naruto, or Sasuke for that matter, anything that could be considered a security threat. Sarutobi relaxed this rule somewhat in the light of Wave Mission debacle, but the fact remains that the village did conspire to keep Naruto away from anything dangerous. Naruto's paranoia was simply him knowing the truth, and he knew this a year before the formation of the actual teams. At that point in time, the number of people who knew he planned to place those restrictions on Naruto's Jounin instructor could be counted on the fingers of a single hand. Either Naruto's mysterious sources had wormed into the very core of Konoha, or Sarutobi was far more predictable than he would have liked. He didn't know which option was worse. Hokage-sama? Asked Kabuto, breaking Sarutobi out of his thought. Should I stop training Naruto? I wasn't. Sarutobi shook his head. There is no need for rash action, Kabuto-san, said Sarutobi. I am a bit tired today, so we'll continue this conversation some other time, but I'd like you to continue your sessions with Naruto. I will require that you submit weekly reports on his progress, however. Of course, agreed Kabuto happily. Sarutobi sighed heavily and waved the gray-haired medic away. He had to think about this long and hard. The situation was clearly more delicate than he suspected and had to be handled with care. While he had already given Anko and Kurenai a mission, he figured it didn't hurt to tackle the problem from several directions. Yamato, Sarutobi said seemingly to no one. Send someone to look for Jiraiya and tell him to drag his sorry ass back to Konoha now. No excuses? Of course, Hokage-sama, a voice said, a shadow appearing for a moment, only to disappear just as quickly. Kakashi observed his charges with a small amount of pride. Since Team 7 was back to active duty, Kakashi decided to see how far they've come by teaching them the Earth Clone technique. Earth clones were fairly tough as clones go, and could be made even tougher by pouring additional chakra into them, but they were rather chakra intensive. It was a good technique for Naruto, and a good way to judge Sasuke and Sakura's chakra reserves and training focus. A bit too ambitious, perhaps, but he knew for a fact that none of the three spent their vacation resting. To his surprise, all three of them mastered the technique that very same day, Sasuke by simply copying it with his Sharingan, Naruto through his superior chakra control, and Sakura by absorbing Naruto's chakra to keep going until she got the hang of it. Kakashi had at least expected Sakura to take a week or so, what with her small chakra reserves. But apparently she was quite ingenious when she sets her mind on something. It took quite a lot of skill to reverse engineer a technique just through a description of how it works. The curious thing was that Naruto was still practicing the technique. Sasuke and Sakura were resting on the ground, drained mentally and physically, but Naruto was still creating and dispelling clones. Kakashi didn't understand what the blonde was trying to do, but he was very focused on his task. Naruto, are you okay? Naruto stopped in the middle of the seal sequence at the words and shook his head, as if waking up from a dream. He turned around to face Kakashi. Yeah. Why wouldn't I be? Kakashi stared at him with a blank expression for a few seconds, studying him. You looked quite engrossed over there, Kakashi said. I must admit I'm at loss as to what you're trying to do. It seems to me you've mastered that technique hours ago. There is something wrong with it, said Naruto. My chakra control is amazing, but I still have trouble controlling the technique. That shouldn't be happening. Ah, said Kakashi in understanding. That's because it's an elemental technique, of course. Once you convert your body chakra into earth chakra, the technique's effectiveness no longer depends just on your chakra control, but on your earth manipulation as well. And since this is the first time you've performed an earth manipulation, that skill is entirely absent in you, said Naruto. And it's going to be this way for each of 5 elements? Afraid so, said Kakashi. That's why most ninja prefer to limit themselves to a single element. Becoming proficient in all 5 elements is hard. But I believe in flexibility, so I'll teach you a little bit from everything. I still haven't gotten the chakra paper I need to test your affinities, but— Wind, interrupted Naruto. HM? Asked Kakashi. I'm wind-natured, said Naruto. Kakashi looked at him curiously. How do you know that? Naruto reached into his pocket and took out a square piece of paper that had a circular seal painted on it. The seal had 5 smaller circles embedded in it, each circle containing a character for one of the elements. Naruto shoved the paper into Kakashi's face, channeling chakra into it. The small circle with a character for wind lit up immediately. I see, said Kakashi, taking the paper out of Naruto's hand and channeling a bit of chakra himself, causing the circle with the character for earth to lit up. It can be used for an indefinite amount of times? Essentially, said Naruto. I made it mostly as a curiosity, to see if I could do it. And because I wanted to see if I could do it, I guess. You can keep it as far as I'm concerned. Kakashi hummed before waving to Sasuke and Sakura to stop pretending they're not eavesdropping on the conversation and come closer. He handed the paper to Sakura and everyone huddled around her to see what she'll get. Fire, she said. A fairly common result here in Konoha, said Kakashi with a nod. Sasuke channeled a bit of chakra into the paper before frowning. This can't be right, he said. Naruto, are you sure this is working properly? Damn right I am, said Naruto, apparently insulted that someone doubted his sealing expertise. What's so strange around being lightning-natured anyway? I'm an Uchiha, said Sasuke. Uchihas are all fire-natured. No, not really, disagreed Kakashi. Just most of them. So are you going to teach us techniques that use our affinity? Interrupted Sakura. Among other things, yes, said Kakashi. As I already said, I believe overspecialization is dangerous, but your affinity determines which element you're naturally good at. Cover your weakness but never neglect your strengths, the saying goes. In fact, since you did so well with the Earth Clone technique, I suppose I can give each of you an elemental technique of your affinity, as a parting gift. What do you say? Yes, agreed Sakura enthusiastically. Agreed Sasuke. Actually, I'd rather you teach me that earth technique where you sink into the ground as if it were water, said Naruto, causing everyone else to look at him strangely. Kakashi gave Naruto a curious look. And why is that? As far as I know, wind techniques tend towards the destructive side. And I doubt you're really authorized to teach me anything very destructive, said Naruto. That wind technique you want to teach me is probably less effective than an explosive note. And remember, I can make as many of those as I need. On the other hand, I can think up a whole slew of uses for that earth technique. Plus, it uses the same element as the earth clone, so getting proficient in one will probably make me more efficient in the other as well. Frankly, Kakashi-sensei, my plate is already a bit full. I already have sealing and medical techniques to keep me busy, and I'd rather not neglect those studies in order to learn how to manipulate different elemental chakras. Not unless I'm getting something good out of it. I think I have no problems in specializing in earth techniques. They seem very versatile. Kakashi listened patiently to the boy. It was rare for him to be so vocal about something, so this was a prime opportunity to see how his mind worked. All things considered, the boy had a point, even if it was more than a little disturbing that he knew Kakashi was restricted in what he could teach them. Not surprising in any way, but disturbing nonetheless. However, Kakashi's pride was a little hurt. Naruto thought he couldn't teach him something good? There was a reason ninjutsu was so popular, and no, it wasn't because ninjas liked flashy things. And other than perhaps Sarutobi, Kakashi had the biggest collection of techniques in Konoha. He had something good for everyone. Well, the Hokage did authorize him to teach them a high-level technique each. He didn't specify what high-level means. I see, said Kakashi evenly. You're right that the underground fish technique is very useful and versatile, and that's why I'm going to teach it to all of you, eventually. However, you're wrong in assuming I'm going to be wasting your time. I suppose that, rather than talking, a demonstration is in order. Naruto, could you please make as many earth clones as you can and have them stand by that tree over there? Make them as tough as you can. After a moment of hesitation, Naruto created 50 earth clones and instructed them to gather around the tree in question. It was an impressive feat, really, and not just because of chakra expenditure. Much like regular clones, earth clones weren't entirely independent of the creator, and required a certain amount of direction by the creator. For Naruto to coordinate that many spoke of a well-organized mind. Alright. I'm going to show you some techniques now, said Kakashi. Sasuke, please turn off your Sharingan for now. Each of these techniques will kill you from chakra exhaustion if you try to perform them. Sasuke did as told with a grunt of annoyance, and Kakashi deliberately blazed through the hand seals, ensuring that none of his genin saw which ones he used exactly. Completing the technique, he blew a ball of compressed air at the gaggle of earth clones. Upon hitting the tree, the wind bullet detonated a blast concussive and slashing force, tearing both the tree and the clones into pieces and sending them raining around the training ground. No clones survived the blast. Whoa, said Naruto. That was a wind bullet technique, said Kakashi. Sadly, it is beyond your ability to perform, as it requires a great deal of control of wind chakra to execute safely. In the hands of someone like you, the wind bullet would explode right in your face if you tried to perform it, your exceptional chakra control notwithstanding. If you want to be able to perform techniques like that, you need to get some familiarity over your wind affinity by performing simpler techniques. Now, make more clones, but disperse them all around us, so they cannot be caught up in such a concentrated blast. Taking a deep breath, Naruto created 15 more clones and scattered them across the meadow they were in. Despite expending such a massive amount of chakra twice in a row, Naruto didn't even seem affected. His chakra capacity truly was amazing. Kakashi sped through the hand seals again, this time causing an aura of fire to erupt around him. His genin jumped away from him in shock, even as the aura of fire broke up into a multitude of flaming birds that sped off towards Naruto's earth clones. This time Naruto instructed his clones to dodge, just as Kakashi suspected he would, but the birds were very fast and could home in on their targets. Each time a bird slammed into the clone, a miniature fireball would engulf the hapless target, reducing it to charred soil. Despite Naruto's best attempts, again no clones survived the assault. That was Children of the Phoenix technique, said Kakashi. Like the previous ability, it can only be performed by someone with a fire affinity that spent a lot of time honing their fire element manipulation doing simpler techniques. Otherwise you just set yourself on fire. So how can you perform all these techniques? Protested Sasuke with annoyance. We've already seen you're earth-natured, but you're doing all these supposedly exclusive techniques with no problems. What makes you think I have no problems performing them? Asked Kakashi. I'll have you know they take a lot out of me, but how can you perform them at all? Insisted Sasuke. He probably went through elemental decomposition training for each element, piped in Sakura. The what? Asked Naruto. Elemental decomposition, repeated Sakura. It's a set of advanced exercises meant to develop one's affinity for a particular element. Each element has its own set of exercises, and it's supposed to take years to develop even one element that way. But considering everything we know about Kakashi-sensei, he probably went through all 5 by now. Very good, Sakura, agreed Kakashi. In order to use these high-level techniques for an element you have no affinity for, you'd have to spend years developing an affinity for it. I'm assuming you're all operating on a smaller time frame than that. All 3 of them nodded in agreement. Fortunately, you don't have to work that hard if you naturally have the affinity for the element in question. So if you work hard, you'll be able to perform these techniques I've shown you in a year or so. Maybe even months if you're really motivated. Including a lightning one for Sasuke, of course. Which one would that be? Asked Sasuke eagerly. Chidori, said Kakashi. It's a high-ranking assassination ninjutsu, and my one original technique. It requires the Sharingan to be used correctly, so I guess you're the only option for a successor. I guess I can demonstrate with Naruto's help. Naruto, make a single earth clone and make it as tough as you can. Naruto did so, and Kakashi promptly activated Chidori and lunged at the clone. Somewhat disappointingly, the clone didn't even try to evade, not that it would have done it any good, and Kakashi ran his hand through its chest, causing it to fall apart. Earth techniques can be a bother to deal with, said Kakashi. They can often make a user nearly unassailable unless you're a lot stronger than your opponent. Chidori and its advanced version, Raikiri, were my answer to the many protective techniques Rock Ninja used during the Third Ninja War. There is also a fair number of bloodlines that allow the user to shrug off normal injuries, but I can guarantee you that they can't deal with the level of damage Chidori causes. Kakashi was pleased to note that all 3 were suitably impressed, and sent a particularly smug smile towards Naruto, who sighed and waved his hands in defeat. Kakashi proceeded to show them the techniques Phoenix Flower, Wind Sickle, and Shocking Touch. Sasuke complained that he already knows Phoenix Flower, but Kakashi simply told him he was teaching them that particular technique for Sakura's sake, not his. It wasn't Kakashi's fault the Uchiha knew most of the fire techniques he wanted to teach them. His task done, Kakashi decided to go home and lie down a little. Those techniques really did take a lot out of him. Hinata loved Naruto more than life itself. She would die for him, if need be. But if he showed up in front of her right now, she would juke in his ass so hard he'd stay in the hospital for a week. That's disgusting, said Kiba. Hinata tried to wipe the foul-smelling orange slime off her shirt but found that it had bonded to her clothes and would not come off so easily. It was essentially harmless, but the smell was intense enough to much up Kiba and Akamaru's tracking abilities. And besides, Hinata just didn't like to stink. Want me to help with that? Offered Kiba. No, snarled Hinata crankily, giving Kiba a hard glare. The Inuzuka quickly withdrew from her in response. Hinata sighed, attempting to use a kunai to scrape off the substance and then giving up. Even when harmless, Naruto's traps were a nasty piece of work. She'll just deal with it until the end of the exercise. You aren't giving up so soon, are you? Asked Kurenai. Hell no! Yelled Kiba. I'm not giving up till I catch that asshole and beat the crap out of him for everything he made us go through today. Akamaru growled crankily in agreement. Perhaps we should stop underestimating our opponent then, said Shino. So far we've encountered mud-filled pits, highly adhesive trees, uncharacteristically aggressive squirrels, live hornet nests used as projectiles, sludge bombs made out of sealing paper folded into real-looking origami flowers, and butterflies that explode into clouds of itching powder. Clearly Naruto is toying with us, believing us to be incapable to dealing with actual traps that have capacity to maim and kill. And is correct, if our abysmal performance is of any indication. Considering the nature of our abilities and training, our failure to evade these traps indicates psychological issues rather than being a question of base competence. Hinata dipped her head in shame. Shino was too kind. She and Kiba had been blundering from one trap to another right from the start of the exam. The only time Shino was fooled was when he allowed that colorful butterfly to approach him, but even then he managed to avoid most of the itching powder. Hinata had tried to be more careful, but these sort of exercises lasted for hours and she couldn't keep her Byakugan active all that time. The Inuzuka wasn't faring much better than her. Tracking Naruto by scent was easy, but simply following the trail meant blundering into trap after trap. How the hell did he set up all of this anyway? He only had a 30-minute head start. Where is he? Kiba asked, looking at Hinata pointedly. Hinata activated her Byakugan and searched for the blonde. He was still in the same damn tree she saw him a while ago, humming to himself and scribbling something into a notebook. He hasn't moved from his spot yet, said Hinata. He wants a confrontation, said Shino. The battlefield has probably been thoroughly adjusted in his favor at that place. So what do we do now? Asked Kiba. We circle around him and come after him from behind, said Shino. We've been tracking his progress at regular intervals and we know which sections of the forest he hasn't been to at all. He could not have trapped areas he has never visited. I realize it is somewhat against the spirit of the exercise to simply evade the traps altogether like this. Nonsense, piped in Kurenai. As long as it would work just as well in the live situations, any solution is permitted. Carry on. Very well, acknowledged Shino. As I said, we simply circle around him and evade the traps. Since he has clearly prepared his current spot, our first priority is to get him as far away from it as possible, preferably in a direction away from the section of the forest he trapped. Then I and Kiba simply keep him busy until Hinata can incapacitate him. The first plan was very easy. Circling around Naruto really did evade all the traps he had laid in their path, and they encountered no surprises. They were afraid that the blonde would notice their tactics and retreat deeper into his trap territory, but Naruto remained stationary. Frankly, it made Hinata queasy. Naruto was very perceptive, and if the stories Hinata overheard from Sakura were true, he could seed an area with something called sensor seals, which allowed him to detect chakra signatures. There was no way he had not noticed their approach. But what else could she do, except go along with her teammates' plan? They sprung from their hiding spots and charged their target, knowing there was no way for them to get close enough for a stealthy capture. Their current goal was merely to get him away from the area. As they converged to his position, Naruto simply tipped over the branch he was sitting on and stuck his feet to the underside of the branch. Kiba and Akamaru were the closest to him, being the first line of attack, and they were so surprised at his strange maneuver they barely reacted when the bandages on Naruto's arms wrapped themselves around their ankles in flash and threw them off the branch. It was nothing dangerous, but those two would take several seconds to break their fall and regroup, an eternity in a battle between ninjas. Shino was not too far behind, and was just about to land on a branch right next to the one Naruto was hanging off. It would give him a perfect firing position on the blonde, allowing Hinata to swoop in while their target was distracted. Naruto flexed his fingers. Hinata's eyes widened when she noticed a thin, almost invisible string of chakra forming between Naruto's finger and a spot underneath the branch Shino was about to land on. Before she could shout a warning, Naruto's finger twitched and an explosion snapped the branch off the tree. The timing was perfect, with the branch snapping at precisely the moment Shino landed on it, destabilizing him utterly and sending him tumbling down. Abandoning the initial plan, Hinata reached into her pocket and pulled out a stack of paper notes. They weren't explosive notes, just regular paper, but it was all she needed. She wanted to keep this trick a secret for a while longer, but she couldn't let Naruto think her team were a bunch of weaklings he could push around all by himself. She channeled chakra into the notes, and they became sharp and rigid as if made out of steel. She threw the notes in a shower of paper blades, causing the blonde to disengage from his branch and run down the trunk of the tree. By this time, Shino and Kiba had recovered their bearings and joined her assault. Hinata used her paper projectiles to keep Naruto busy while Kiba, Akamaru, and Shino engaged in melee. While the paper notes didn't have any special abilities, they were so cheap Hinata could get an effectively infinite supply of them, allowing her to pepper Naruto constantly with shower after shower of sharp projectiles. The technique was seal-less and didn't even use that much chakra, merely requiring superb chakra control. It was just a distraction until she could move in and incapacitate him, of course, but considering how the battle was going, she suspected that could take a while. Kiba and Akamaru had used their clan enhancement techniques and Akamaru had turned into a clone of Kiba. Their attack tactics were crude, but they worked superbly with one another. Shino himself was extremely good at taijutsu, having both skill and power. And yet, Naruto was dealing with all three of them. His bandages coiled around him, diverting their strikes and lashing out at them when the opportunity presented itself. Much like her paper notes, the bandages had the ability to go rigid like steel, although the sheer sophistication of Naruto's control over his bandages made Hinata feel very self-conscious. Studying them with her Byakugan, she could see that the bandages were controlled through thin strands of chakra extending from Naruto's fingers, and we thoroughly soaked with Naruto's chakra. But though their attack seemingly had no effect, they had achieved their immediate goal nonetheless. Naruto was gradually moving deeper into the untrapped portion of the forest under their assault. And none of them expended all of their energies to do it either. Their next rude surprise was when Kiba and Akamaru managed to ram into Naruto and send him into the nearby stream. They had thought this would be the end of him, but Naruto's feet never sank beneath the surface of the water, breaking his fall on it as if it were solid ground. Hinata knew about the water walking exercise, of course, even if she had yet to learn it herself. But the stream was turbulent. Naruto didn't walk on it so much as break his fall on it, and he was doubtlessly distracted and in pain from Kiba and Akamaru's attack. Yet he gave no indication whatsoever that performing the water walking exercise under those conditions was in any way difficult for him. It spoke of a chakra control so vast that Hinata wondered if Naruto has some sort of bloodline. Conveniently, it would mean her father would be much more open to the idea of Naruto as her husband. Ninja clans loved adding bloodlines to their descendants, and Hyuga were no exception. A bloodline that gives superb chakra control would complement well with the Byakugan, but that was a thought for some other time. Hidden mist technique, said Naruto from his spot on the stream, and thick white mist blanketed the entire area. It was a troublesome technique to be sure. It obscured everything from normal sight. The chakra-laden mist somehow dampened the sounds, and the water droplets interfered with scent-based abilities. It did nothing to stop her Byakugan, however, so Hinata took it upon herself to keep her teammates safe and coordinate the counterattack. At first Naruto tried to overwhelm them using earth clones, which he made in wave after wave, but Hinata found them to be very inferior to the real Naruto, unable to use their bandages like he did and lacking his inventiveness in battle. A single well-placed paper note was enough to take care of them. Seeing this tactic would not work, Naruto tried knocking out Hinata with a few well-placed explosive notes, presumably so he could pick off her remaining teammates one by one. That's when they sprung a trap for him. A mass of Kikai exploded upwards from right beneath Naruto. While they could never hope to drain him of chakra, they did obscure his vision completely, and their buzzing completely drowned out any sound they might make. It occupied him enough for Shino and Kiba to land several punches on his and quickly restrain him with wire. Damn, was all Naruto said. Hinata glanced towards Kiba and Akamaru to see if she would have to restrain them from pummeling Naruto while he was helpless, but they seemed to have calmed down as much as she did. Which was good, because she really didn't want to fight her teammates. Well done, said Kurenai, appearing beside them. Your start was a little disappointing, but you've achieved your objective within the set time frame. Just remember that if those traps were real, you'd be dead several times over by now. You can untie Naruto now. Hinata sat down on the ground with a thud. She was still so very weak compared to Naruto, but she thought she was doing rather well. She had committed herself to the support role or medic and scout, and she thought she did pretty well there, all things considered. Her father didn't approve, but she no longer cared so much about that. She had Naruto and her team. They supported her. Just yesterday she told her father she does even want to be the clan heir and that he can put the branch house seal on her whenever he wanted. Hanabi clearly made for a much better leader anyway, and Hinata suspected that clan heads couldn't disgrace their position by marrying someone like Naruto. Her father had become curiously upset with her and told her not to make rash decisions, insisting that she try her best. She really didn't understand him. Shaking her head, she rose up again and went to the three boys and the dog to see if anyone needs healing. They didn't. The fighting was intense but without injuries, as neither side really wanted to go all the way on each other. Actually, Hinata, there is something you can help me with, said Naruto. I've been wanting to test something for a while now, and the only people I trust with this are you and Shino. Oh, said Kurenai with interest. And what would that be? I can't let you perform experiments on my charges, you know? It's not that kind of experiment, sighed Naruto. If anything, I'm the one who's in danger. What do you mean? Asked Hinata, happy that she was considered to be one of Naruto's most trusted people. I can enter my Mindscape, said Naruto. It's really useful, since time spent there doesn't count in the real world. I could spend hours there, and have only a minute or so pass in the real world. But I was wondering if it was possible to bring someone over with me. And that's risky because I don't want just about anyone in my mind, you know? I see, said Kurenai, obviously very interested. That would indeed be very useful. How do you intend to do it? Actually, I was hoping you'd help me with that, said Naruto. It sounds like something you'd know, being a genjutsu mistress and all. Naruto certainly knew how to get people interested. Kurenai predictably asked for a demonstration, which was very unimpressive, since it seemed like Naruto simply spent a minute or so in deep meditation. Kurenai performed a staggering amount of genjutsu on the blonde while he was meditating, and constantly consulted Hinata, who was observing it all with her Byakugan. Apparently satisfied, Kurenai spent the next hour walking in circles around them, mumbling to herself. Hinata's team used that time to chat up with Naruto, partially about this new ability of his but mostly about nothing in particular. Finally, Kurenai came back to Naruto and instructed him how to perform several techniques on Hinata, having apparently invented them on the spot just for this purpose. The first 15 failed to produce any effect, the next 3 just made Hinata feel sick, but the 19th one caused Hinata's world to blur and blacken until she suddenly found herself inside the Hokage's office. Only instead of the aging Sandaime, Naruto was sitting behind the desk, blowing bubbles out of his pipe and frowning at the paper in his hand. Hinata giggled at the sight. "It worked," said Naruto excitedly, throwing the paper in the air where it promptly disintegrated into nothingness. "I was starting to think Kurenai was making fun of me or something." Hinata looked around the room. Though a fairly convincing replica of the Hokage's office, there were obvious differences. For one thing, the walls were plastered with complicated diagrams of some kind of contraptions, and what appeared to be ceiling arrays. Hinata couldn't make heads or tails of it, but it certainly looked impressive. "Hokage's office?" she asked finally. "Yeah," said Naruto, chuckling nervously. "Would you believe this place used to be sewer before I got to changing it? It just seemed natural to change it into this, you know? Just don't open the window, okay?" "Why?" asked Hinata curiously. "That's the seal holding back the Kyuubi," said Naruto seriously. "Oh, so anyway, I wanted to see what would happen if I brought someone over and now you're here," said Naruto, changing the subject. "Why don't we do some experiments then?" "Like what?" asked Hinata. "Well, I can create and destroy things here with but a thought," said Naruto, causing a bird made out of flame to erupt from his hand. The bird expanded in size and the flames died down, leaving behind a black statue of a crane in the middle of the room. Naruto waved his hand dismissively, and the crane vanished as if it was never there. "Why don't you try so we can see if only I can do that? Create things? Anything?" This meant that you could make your wildest fantasies come true in this place. True, it wouldn't be anything like the real thing, but still. Despite her best efforts, an image of a naked Naruto with his hands draped across her shoulders implanted itself in her mind. She shook her head to drive the image away but only succeeded in changing the scene slightly. There was a soft pop and Hinata was mortified to find someone behind her wrap his arms around her waist, pulling her to him. She was just about to attack when a familiar voice breathed her into her neck. "It's okay, Hinata-chan," illusionary Naruto whispered. "I've been wanting to do this for a long time." Hinata was mortified, and the shocked expression on the real Naruto standing in front of her made her want to sink into the ground in shame. In fact, she did try that, but it seemed there were some things she could not do even here. She tore herself from the illusionary Naruto's grasp when the illusion tried to nibble on her ear, trying desperately to will it away. By now, the real Naruto had recovered and was smiling from ear to ear, clearly amused at the situation. "I never knew you were this kind of girl, Hinata-chan." Hinata summoned the last of her willpower to think about something else and succeeded in banishing the illusion. Only for 3 more to pop in existence around her, the real Naruto roared into loud laughter. "Oh man, one of me is no longer enough for you? You're something else, Hinata-chan, I'll give you that." Hinata had had enough. She had mostly overcome her fainting spells a while ago, but faced with such an humiliating experience she simply lost consciousness. Hinata in Naruto's Mindscape winked out of existence, taking the 3 illusionary Narutos with her, and Hinata in the real world toppled over to the ground, scaring her sensei and teammates half to death. She refused to speak to Naruto for a week afterwards. Naruto's incident with Hinata remained purely between the two of them, but her 2 teammates clearly had an inkling about what happened since they came to him the next day and threatened to maim him if he hurts Hinata. Naruto didn't know what to think about that. At least Shino was usually on his side. Did they really think so low of him? It seems that Team 8 is becoming a real team and he was becoming an outsider. At least they haven't thrown him out of the group yet. Hinata calmed down after a week or so, but she still switched places with Shino for the experiment. Apparently she asked Kurenai for exercises that will let her control her thoughts more effectively, and could be seen in some kind of meditation occasionally. Naruto had finally made himself some new puppets, 5 of them in fact. They all had an arthropod, theme to them, and Naruto had really outdid himself in making them, if he can say so himself. The first one was a centipede-like successor or naga, armed with huge poison-injecting mandibles and trading the Naga's fire-breathing apparatus for a water cannon that drew water from a large number of storage seals in the centipede's body and fired it in the form of a highly concentrated beam that could cut boulders. The second one was a large beetle bristling with various destructive weaponry and riddled with absorbing seals that would allow it to suck in any fire or lightning technique Naruto might encounter. The next two were two identical puppets he called fleas, because of their distinctive appearance and the fact that they moved by jumping around. Their weaponry was very light and based on poisons, but they were fast and maneuverable. The last one was a modified version of one of Sasori's standard puppets. Roach was humanoid and four-armed, fast, armed with retractable wrist blades, and damn near impossible to destroy. You could smash it to pieces, but a single technique would put it back together. Beetle and Centipede were his defensive puppets, meant to protect him from enemies seeking to engage him in close combat, or overpower him with techniques. Fleas and Roach were his attack puppets, meant to pursue enemies and finish them. But really, they were meant to be used together. Like a team, he had designed them to cover each other's weaknesses as best as he could. He was only bothered by the fact that he couldn't test them by fighting against Sasori, which was how he ironed out the little problems in Naga prior to its combat use. Kabuto turned out fine. Old Man swallowed the medic's story and even gave him his official blessing. True, Kabuto was now required to report directly to the Hokage on all things related to Naruto, but that was minor compared to what Naruto thought would happen. Still, Old Man's scrutiny interfered with their training, in that Naruto couldn't use his puppeteering without disguising it like he did with his bandages and various zombie animals. So Naruto found himself grudgingly working on various techniques Kakashi gave them. He had already made variant of that wind blast technique Kakashi taught him, one that allowed him to fire several smaller blasts in succession instead of one big one. Wind Scythe, despite its awesome name, was a fairly weak technique, capable of giving someone a nasty cut and little else, unless Naruto anchored the wind scythe to one of his bandages, in which it was capable of leaving deep gashes in the bark of the trees he practiced on. He had tried to improve the earth clones by attaching reinforcement tags on them, but those tags required too much chakra to create to be used as freely as he'd like. The functions he'd like to improve in the earth clones were many, and squeezing all the necessary seals on a little paper tag inflated the chakra cost needlessly. That's when it hit him. What if he used a puppet as raw material for a clone technique? The puppet could be riddled with as many seals as he'd like, after all, but doing that was easier said than done. So far he had been doing only relatively minor alterations to the techniques he was modifying, and this would be a complete overhaul. He would be practically inventing a whole new technique all by himself. Naruto knew a lot of things he objectively shouldn't have, but creating a new technique entirely from scratch was not one of them. Holding his breath, Naruto added the finishing touches to the puppet in front of him. Glassy eyes of a blonde-haired, orange-clad, human-like puppet stared back at him. "Hello, Puppet Naruto," said Naruto. "It's nice to meet you." He snickered to himself before taking several steps back and started doing hand seals. "The moment of truth. Puppet clone," he said. The puppet was enveloped in smoke and became an exact replica of him. The replica tried to get up in jerky, inept movements before falling to the ground and dissolving, leaving only a puppet behind. "Crap," hissed Naruto. Attempt 1 failed. "We're lost, aren't we?" Temari asked with annoyance. "We're not lost," said Kankuro. "We're just still looking." Temari rolled her eyes. Kankuro was always terrible at remembering directions. Why the hell did she send him to get directions to their hotel from Baki-sensei? "I'm tired of walking around," said Temari. "Quit looking and start finding." Kankuro mumbled something that she couldn't quite make out, but was probably rude, and started rubbing his chin. Temari had a powerful urge to smack him over the head with her fan, but she was controlling herself. She glanced at her other brother. She can control herself, but can Gaara? You could never tell when the redhead was going to suddenly snap. Even now he was constantly leaking small amounts of killing intent all around him, causing everyone to give them a wide berth. And then the most curious thing happened. A blonde, whiskered, young Konoha ninja wearing a blaring orange shirt entered their bubble like nothing was wrong, continuing on his way undeterred by Gaara's emanations. The blonde was in a bad mood himself, also leaking minute amounts of killing intent, also creating a bubble of emptiness all around him. He gave Temari's team only the most cursory glance to make sure they were not a threat, and then walked right past them, mumbling attempt 37 failed in an angry voice. "Hey you," called out Gaara suddenly. "What?" said the blonde crankily, craning his neck to look at her younger brother. Temari swallowed heavily. She desperately wanted to tell the blonde to speak with less hostility, because if Gaara interprets the blonde's attitude as a challenge, "Do you know where the White Leaf Hotel is?" Sure, said the blonde. You're going in the opposite direction. Go back in that direction, then turn left at the second intersection. It's in the merchant district, so fruit sellers often choke up the road. It's easy to miss if you're not careful. Anyway, once you push back through the fruit stands, you should see a yellow-colored building nearby. That's the White Leaf Hotel. The three Sangenin stared at the blonde in surprise. His bad mood seemed to have disappeared in an instant, replaced by a cheery and smiling individual. Unfortunately, the blonde interpreted their stares differently. I'll take you there, he sighed. Temari wanted to protest, but Gaara simply walked off after the blonde. She glanced at Kankuro, who simply shrugged and went as well. Feeling a bit queasy about this, Temari joined her team. The blonde wasn't normal. He was no longer as cheery as he was only a minute ago, but neither was he in foul mood. Instead, his mind seemed to be elsewhere as he led them down the streets of Konoha, which was quite a feat when being around Gaara. Not only was Gaara still leaking killing intent, he was now specifically focused on the blonde. The Konoha ninja had clearly fascinated Gaara, and Temari had a horrible feeling this would end badly. Why the hell was the kid ignoring Gaara's killing intent? But the second thing about the blonde was even stranger. Even though he was walking next to an unstable maniac like her brother, the villagers were whispering and casting glances at the blonde, not Gaara. They seemed to be more concerned at Naruto's presence than Gaara's. When they finally got to the fruit stands, the effect became so pronounced that Temari had a compulsion to outright ask them what the hell is their problem. Or at least demand answers from the blonde. But she was controlling herself. Gaara had no such inhibitions. They seem to fear you, he said to the blonde. Yeah, the villagers don't really like me, the blonde said. Don't let it bother you. Man, you must have done some serious shit to get that kind of reaction, said Kankuro. Not really, the blonde said. I didn't do anything to them. Then why do they fear you? Asked Gaara. It's a bit personal, the blonde tried. Let's just say they consider me a monster. Temari and her team stopped in their tracks, staring the whiskered blonde. What? The blonde asked. Well, we're here, said Temari quickly. That's it, isn't it? The yellow building? Oh, the blonde said, glancing at the building. You're right. My bad, I guess I got carried away. Well, this is it, I guess. Temari watched the blonde backtrack from where they came from. Monster? How could that boy possibly be a monster? What is your name? Called out Gaara. Uzumaki Naruto, the blonde said. What's yours, Gaara? And these two are by sister Temari and my brother Kankuro. We're here to participate in the Chunin exams taking place in Konoha. Are you going to participate in the exams as well? The blonde looked thoughtful for a moment. I don't really know. Our sensei can be really unpredictable. Maybe. Gaara stood and watched the blonde push through the food stands and away from sight, and Temari didn't dare leave until Gaara did. Finally, her brother turned around and continued towards the hotel. Temari sighed in relief. She's going straight to bed after she takes a bath. Uzumaki Naruto, said Gaara softly beside her. I will see you at the Chunin exams. You will validate my existence. Chapter 12, Hunting Grounds. The thing about complex plans is that reality tends to wreck them by introducing new variable out of nowhere. Sasori knew this, and tried to make his kill Orochimaru as simple and flexible as he could, yet he still ended up running afoul of this tendency. Of all the things they could have brought, did it have to be another Jinchuriki? Mumbled Sasori irritably. This is going to ruin everything. He couldn't kill the kid. Not only would doing so put everyone including Orochimaru at high alert, it was also potentially catastrophic. What would happen to Shikaku if its container was killed? Sasori didn't know. For all he knew, the tailed beast would be released to rampage around Konoha unchecked. Sasori didn't particularly care about Konoha in an emotional sense, but its destruction was not in his best interests at the moment. Halfway through weighing pros and cons of killing the Sand Jinchuriki, Sasori realized his irritation was way out of proportion to the actual obstacle in front of him. Yes, Gaara had to be neutralized, but that was not an impossible task. No, the real problem wasn't Gaara as such, but rather the Sand's involvement in general. For some reason their presence aggravated him greatly. Why did this bother him so? He was over with his former village, all his bridges with them burned, yet every time he saw them he felt anger and bitterness the likes of which he hadn't felt in a long time. Much like in Naruto's case, there was no single thing that soured Sasori towards Sand, but rather a constant stream of small slights that built up over time. The problem wasn't that Sand had some irrational bias towards Sasori, because it didn't. The problem was that Sasori didn't think like a ninja should, and thus ended up clashing with his superiors over and over until he finally snapped one day. When Naruto asked him if he was a ninja so long ago, Sasori told him he was an artist. As much as this was an obfuscation tactic, it was also true. In his own way, Sasori was as much a failure as a ninja as Naruto was. But if Sasori had to isolate one thing as a catalyst for his betrayal, it would have to be Sand's treatment of his precious art. True, Sand was thrilled with his standardized puppets, but they had no appreciation for the deeper mysteries of his work. They mindlessly parroted his works, never bothering to understand the genius behind them, the thing that made them so potent and versatile. And how could they when the third Kazekage forbid Sasori from teaching Sasori's insights to anyone? Sasori had tried so hard to develop his art, poured his life into it, only to have it forbidden in its pure form. The third Kazekage didn't want puppeteering as an art, a set of instructions in theory that one could use creatively to create their own puppets. That was too dangerous. And Suna shared his views on the matter. Techniques, bloodline limits, tailed beasts, these things were something that could be easily kept restricted in the hands of the carefully approved few. But knowledge and insight? Why, any lone genius could come up with all sorts of dangerous ideas with that kind of knowledge. Any lone genius like Sasori. So Sasori's masterpiece, the scrolls he made to teach the future disciples of the art, was locked away in the Kazekage's vault, the understanding behind puppeteering suppressed. Oh, he was permitted to teach his direct descendants, but what did that mean to Sasori? As far as Sasori was concerned, it was the biggest insult they could have hurled at him. To hide away his art away from all eyes, left to rot in some cellar, was a provocation of the highest order. The third Kazekage might as well spat into Sasori's face with that decree. How could Sasori have possibly not responded? So Sasori killed him. He killed the Kazekage, despite his fancy bloodline that everyone said was unbeatable. It's funny how the world of ninja is filled with unbeatable abilities. Sasori didn't even kill him in battle, never charged head-on into the iron sand. He simply placed a mind control seal on the Kazekage's secretary and had her poison him. It was only fitting for a puppeteer to kill an opponent through a puppet. It was not Sasori's fault that the Kazekage had a very limited definition of what a puppet was. Sasori nodded to himself. Gaara had to be dealt with, but Sasori himself was too emotionally perturbed by Sand presence to do it himself. He could easily lose control of his temper and do something rash and stupid. Fortunately, he had someone to take his place. After all, why did he have a disciple if not to take care of inconveniences like this? He activated the tracking seal he wove into Naruto's Shiki Fujin overlay and nodded to himself when he detected him wandering around Konoha. He began to walk towards him while writing a short coded message on a piece of paper along the way. If Naruto was shadowed, he would simply slip the paper into his pocket. As it happened, Naruto wasn't shadowed, but he was in a lively section of the village and people were paying close attention to him. Talking to his was out of the question, so Sasori carefully folded the paper in his hand and started walking towards him. Naruto noticed his approach when he was nearly upon him, and gave only the smallest hint of surprise before he began making hand seals. Sasori was alarmed at first, thinking he fell for a simple transformation technique, but halfway through the technique he realized what Naruto was doing. Strange, where did the blonde find that technique? More to the point, how was he able to use it? It seems little Naruto has secrets of his own. When he felt the technique reach out to him, he did not resist. There was a brief blur as a street full of people was replaced by what appeared to be Hokage's office, albeit with walls decorated with ceiling arrays and puppet designs. Sasori studied the designs for a few moments before shifting his attention to the blonde sitting behind Hokage's desk. So began Naruto. The great Sasori finally deigns to show himself to his disciple. Took you long enough. I didn't know you could access your Mindscape, said Sasori mildly, changing the subject. Naruto's shoulder sagged. You're not surprised I can do this? Not even a little? Sasori cocked his head sideways like a bird studying a shiny object. Damn, mumbled Naruto. Kurenai invented a whole new technique specifically for this, and he's still not impressed. Invented? Asked Sasori. I don't think so. I have seen that particular technique before. Yes, continued Sasori. The ability to enter one's mindscape is not unknown to the ninja world, though it is incredibly taxing mentally, and causes brain damage with prolonged use. At least to people who don't have Jinchuriki's healing abilities. I can enter my mindscape as well, though I use it sparingly for obvious reasons. I even know how to perform that particular technique. But that doesn't make sense, said Naruto. Why would Kurenai lie about that? Probably because she acquired it from a Yamanaka, shrugged Sasori. Legally speaking, that's stealing clan secrets, and could get her into a lot of trouble. The more interesting question is why she's risking exposure by showing you the technique. That is a good question, agreed Naruto. She is a genjutsu specialist, is she not? Asked Sasori. Seeing the boy nod, he continued. Well, that's it probably. Playing around with one's mindscape is an excellent way to train one's genjutsu prowess. I wouldn't be surprised if she had been trying to access her own mindscape for a while now. And there's nothing like a working example when you want to figure something out. Sasori tried to create a puppet in front of him and frowned when it failed. He glanced at the blonde in front of him only to see the child grinning brightly at him. I've been practicing with Shino and Kurenai, Naruto said. After some initial incidents, I have decided it is a bad idea to have people enforce their will in my mindscape. They have too little control of their thoughts, and then blame me for any embarrassing situations. Sasori thanked his foresight for slipping that libido-suppressing function into Naruto's focus seal. Far too many ninja who discover their mindscape waste inordinate amounts of time playing around with sexual fantasies instead of doing productive things. It was just one of the minor personality adjustments he induced in the blonde, actually. While perhaps underhanded, he did not feel he had transgressed as a mentor by doing that. He had put those same adjustments on his own personality seal. He didn't do anything to the blonde that he wouldn't do to himself as well. A wise decision, said Sasori. In any case, the ability to freely manipulate your mindscape makes it a good practice for genjutsu specialists. If you were more skilled, you could even dive deep into your mind and make fundamental changes to your memories and thought processes, though this is as dangerous as it is rewarding. I guess Kurenai has every reason to seek that kind of ability, Naruto conceded. Makes me wonder why exactly she didn't achieve it yet. It seems simple enough to me. I'm pretty sure the only reason you find it so easy to enter your mindscape is that seal on your stomach. Normally, entering your mindscape takes years of training and exercises that are known to only a few clans. However, it seems the Yondaime also got a hold of those secrets, and included the ability as one of the many hidden functions of the seal. It is a rather convenient way to converse with the fox, I will admit. Come to think of it, that explains a lot, Naruto said. The fourth did come up with Shiki Fujin awfully quickly considering how complex it is. I don't care how good a seal master he is, you don't design something that good in a few hours. He must have been using the mindscape as design space the same way I am doing these days. There was a brief silence before Naruto eyed Sasori suspiciously. And how do you know all this stuff anyway? I had an opportunity to talk with a number of practitioners of this ability, including several members of the Yamanaka clan. You mean you interrogated them? Sometimes, admitted Sasori. But it's pretty hard to wrench information from someone's mind when they can edit it at whim. Most of what I know of mindscape manipulation I acquired through trade. Idealism aside, most people will betray their clan's secrets if the price is high enough and the chance of discovery negligible. Sasori suddenly straightened himself. But enough about that. I have sought you out about a matter of great importance. You are aware about the upcoming Chunin exams, yes? Yeah, confirmed Naruto. What of it? Your sensei is planning to enter your team as participants, said Sasori. In fact, all the graduates from your generation are going to be nominated by their respective team leaders. Konoha feels this generation of genin is particularly good, and wants to turn the exam into a show of force. Ah, said Naruto, leaning back into his seat. Not entirely unexpected. Kakashi has been giving my team some pretty intensive training lately. Why is this a concern? Orochimaru is going to invade the village during the final portion of the exam. What? Said Naruto, jumping from his chair. Orochimaru, but... If you... How long did you know about this? And you're springing this on me now? I have to alert the old man and... No, said Sasori simply. I have already set a plan in motion to deal with the invasion, and alerting the Hokage would ruin it. We both know Konoha can't contain the numerous information leaks it is subjected to, so anything they know will be known by Orochimaru in short order. But, do you trust me, Naruto? Sasori watched the blonde impassively. Getting people to follow your lead was surprisingly easy. All you had to do was convince them they were being threatened and not give them time to think things through. The threat didn't even have to be real, though it was more convenient if it was. Springing this so suddenly on Naruto and questioning his loyalty practically ensured the boy would fall in line. Fine, huffed Naruto. But if you think you can keep me in the dark about your plans, I wouldn't dream of it, said Sasori. In fact, as my disciple, I expect you to help me with this issue to the best of your ability. And on that note, I have a task for you. You do? Naruto perked up immediately, suddenly on the edge of his seat in anticipation. I do. There is Genin team from Sand participating in the exams. You mean Gaara and company? asked Naruto. Man, that guy gives me the creeps. He kept looking at me like he wants to eat me, and he leaks killing intent all the freaking time. Regular assassination attempts tend to do that to a child, said Sasori with a shrug. Especially if the child in question is a Jinchuriki with a containment seal so weak they can't even sleep without the tailed beats taking over. Gaara is the Jinchuriki of the Ichibi, clarified Sasori. That, tried Naruto, waving his arms in the air in an attempt to vocalize his thoughts. All he produced was silence. He shook his head and leaned over to Sasori. Using only a sliver of the Kyuubi's power turns me into a combat monster, and the bloodlust that comes with it makes it really hard to care about little things like bystanders and collateral damage. When you said he has a faulty containment seal, what exactly did you mean? If his will ever falters, even for a moment, the Ichibi will manifest itself in its full destructive glory until he reasserts control. Fuck, concluded Naruto. So what's a ticking time bomb like him doing in Konoha? Entering him into Chunin exams is practically an act of war in of itself. Very perceptive of you. This is an act of war. San has allied itself with Orochimaru, and Gaara is supposed to open the invasion by releasing the Ichibi to run amok within Konoha's walls. Naruto paled. But there would be nothing of Konoha left if that happens. What kind of invasion is that? There would be nothing left to conquer as a tailed beast demolishes everything. I'm pretty sure Orochimaru has some kind of grudge against Konoha, said Sasori with a shrug. Destroying the entire village is the entire purpose behind this invasion. And Sand would just be glad they got rid of a rival stealing away their missions. Naruto stayed silent for a while, the office shuddering occasionally, as if subjected to small earthquakes or distant explosions. Finally he locked eyes with Sasori, his eyes slitted and purple. Please tell me this plan of yours ends with Orochimaru dying, growled Naruto. Absolutely, said Sasori. But Orochimaru will likely only make his appearance at the last stage of Chunin exams. I would like to deal with Gaara sooner than that, and you are most conveniently placed for doing that. Meaning? Asked Naruto. The second phase of the exam is wilderness survival with no restrictions on killing. A perfect place and time to neutralize Gaara without plunging the village into high alert. Ah, said Naruto. You want me to kill him? Absolutely not, said Sasori forcefully. Killing him would likely set the Ichibi free. Gaara's seal isn't like yours. His tailed beats will not die if Gaara does. And besides, if Gaara were to die, then Orochimaru will change his plan in unpredictable ways. Hell, he might cancel the invasion altogether, and then what? This was the best opportunity to get rid of Orochimaru that Sasori was going to get in a long time. No, Gaara must live, and so must his teammates if he is to advance to the next portion of the exam. You will place an suppressor overlay over his seal instead. He'll be alive but unable to release Shikaku. Aren't they going to notice something like that? Naruto tried. How? Sasori countered. Gaara's teammates are loath to even speak to him, much less regularly check his seal for tampering. And it isn't like Gaara will tell anyone about his sudden weakness. Right, said Naruto. He frowned. I don't actually know any seals that can do that. Give me the authority to create things in the Mindscape for a moment, Sasori said. Naruto stared at him for a few seconds. Done. Sasori closed his eyes and a scroll popped into existence right in front of him. He threw it towards Naruto, who looked over it, his frown deepening as time passed. Sasori, these designs aren't going to cut it, said Naruto. This will suppress Gaara's Bija for a few hours at most. Enough for me to take him hostage, I suppose, but not. Oh, come on. You can't seriously expect me to. I have utmost faith in your abilities, nodded Sasori. This is the best I could do without knowing the details of Gaara's containment seal. But I'm sure a sealing adept like you can design a whole new seal tailored specifically for Gaara in only a few hours? Come on, Sasori. It's flattering, but no buts, insisted Sasori. Only a person who has a chance to study Gaara's seal can design a lasting overlay for it. Besides, you can use your Mindscape to stretch those few hours into a whole day, no? Naruto blinked. I totally forgot about that. Still, it will be pretty hard, but within your ability, I'm sure, said Sasori. And you'll be pleased to know you won't be operating alone in there. Kabuto will also be participating in the exams and will seek you out while you're inside. Between the two of you, I'm sure you can deal with anything the Sand team can throw at you. Very well. But you and I are going to have a long talk after this, you hear me? Of course. And with that, Sasori left Naruto's Mindscape and walked away from Naruto in the real world, who kept walking in his own direction. Sakura rubbed her eyes irritably, restraining herself from screaming at Naruto. Sure, he had woken up her whole household in the middle of the night by standing in front of her window and yelling at her to wake up and come down. And yes, she could see him down there beneath a street light humming to himself brightly. However, she had a feeling that getting in a screaming match with him would only amuse him and get her into trouble with the neighbors on top of it all. Surely he had a good reason for this. She quickly got dressed and outfitted with her standard ninja gear before rushing out into the street. She stomped over to him and leveled him an expectant glare. "You better have a good reason for this, Naruto," she said. "I swear, if this is one of your pranks, honestly, Sakura, when is the last time I did a prank on anyone these days? More importantly, I have never done a prank on you, my precious flower. I may no longer have a crush on you, but you will always hold a special place in my heart." Sakura blushed, caught off guard at the admission. She may not want the blonde's advances, but it was nice to hear something like that. "Really? Yeah, I think I'm attracted to abusive women," he said with a cheeky smile. Sakura considered slugging him before it dawned on her she may be proving him right. She shook her head to clear her thoughts and banished the drowsiness. "So why did you wake me up like this, then?" "The first portion of the Chunin exams," said Naruto, suddenly serious. Sakura frowned. What did that have to do with anything? Kakashi said that the first portion of the exam was figuring out where the second phase of the exam was taking place. An exercise in information gathering, apparently. Still, the first phase was supposed to begin tomorrow, so what exactly? Sakura's eyes widened, all traces of sleepiness forgotten. Technically, tomorrow was 1 second after midnight. No one said they had a whole day to figure it out. The clock on her nightstand said it was 3 in the morning exactly right before she rushed outside, so they may already be too late. "Wait a minute, you know when and where the second portion is taking place?" she said to Naruto, more as a statement than a question. "Yup," nodded Naruto. "Sasuke is already waiting for us at our team meeting spot at the bridge. So you two did everything without me?" said Sakura, disbelief and hurt in her voice. She had tried so hard not to be a burden anymore, and her teammates still believed her incapable of helping out in something as simple as gathering information? That hurt. "Sasuke was pissed about that too," said Naruto with a nervous chuckle, rubbing the back of his head. "No, actually I did everything myself. Stayed up all night navigating the labyrinth of genjutsu traps set up around Forest of Death." "And why would you do something like that?" demanded Sakura. "I know you're the best one in the team for something like that, but that doesn't mean we couldn't help. I don't suppose you'd believe me if I told you I wanted to let you sleep for a few hours longer?" tried Naruto. "No," she said forcefully. "You'd relish the chance to wake us up as early as possible. Hell, you woke up the whole street right now just to get my attention. What are you up to, Naruto?" "Oh, fine, you got me," sighed Naruto. "I was trying to make up for something I intend to do. An advance apology of sorts. The truth is I have something I need to do during the second phase of the exam, so you and Sasuke will be on your own for a while." "What?" Sakura stuttered. "Naruto, you can't just—" "Come on, Sakura, you and Sasuke," whispered Naruto conspirationally. "Alone, that's not going to work, Naruto," hissed Sakura. "Besides, I'm still not allowed to ask him out for a few more weeks." "But that's besides the point. Naruto, this is a serious, potentially lethal exam. You can't just leave the team like this and go off on your own." "It will be fine, trust me," said Naruto, thrusting a scroll into her hand. "This will allow me to track your movements at all times, so I'll be able to easily find you later. Now let's go get Sasuke before he comes looking for us." Sakura did not like this. Not one bit. However, when they reached Sasuke and she broke the issue to him, he dismissed her concerns and told her he alone is more than enough to get them all through the exams. Was she the only one who took Kakashi's lessons about teamwork to heart? They both missed the whole point of her complaints. She wasn't worried about failing the stupid exam, she was worried about Naruto's safety. She had only seen him this nervous once, in that disastrous mission to the wave. Which could only mean one thing: he was going to do something extremely dangerous. Alone, she knew Naruto was a lot stronger than he appeared if one took their team exercises at face value. But could he really be so far beyond them that their help would only be a hindrance to him? Or was the problem that he didn't trust them enough? She resolved to corner the blonde for some answers after Chunin exams. Perhaps she could enlist Ino's help in this? Her rival did seem to have some kind of interest in Naruto. Coincidentally, by the time they reached the entrance to the Forest of Death, an ominous name for a training ground if there was ever one, Ino's team was already there. For that matter, so was everyone else's. Team 7 seemed to be latecomers to the whole event. Naruto quickly broke away from them to go and say hi to a number of people gathered there, treating the whole thing as if it was a nice friendly gathering. "Sasuke-kun!" yelled Ino as she threw herself at the cringing Uchiha. Sakura growled and pulled Ino off her crush. She may have agreed to leave Sasuke alone for the foreseeable future, but that didn't mean she was going to let Ino have him. What's the big idea, Ino pig? Protested Sakura. Go back to your own team and leave me and Sasuke-kun alone. Don't be like that, waved Ino dismissively. Naruto just told me you could use a visit. Did he now? Asked Sasuke darkly. I'll have to see about tanking him when he gets back. Listen, did you notice anything unusual about Naruto lately? Ino asked. Ever since he got back from that mission to the Land of the Waves, he has been acting weird. He's always been weird, said Sasuke. It's because he's constantly hiding something or other and pretending. But why? Asked Sakura. I don't care, and you shouldn't either, snapped Sasuke. Everyone has their secrets, but we're his teammates, protested Sakura. And I'm his friend, added Ino. Shouldn't that count for something? We're ninja, countered Sasuke. Secrets are the foundation of our lives. You two are just being too nosy for your own good. If you really cared about him, you would let him be until he's ready to confide in you, Sakura huffed at her crush. Were they talking about Naruto or Sasuke now? It seemed Sasuke was projecting a bit. He's going to do something dangerous out there, said Sakura. I'm just worried. But Sasuke's talkative mood had passed, and he refused to be goaded into saying anything else. Annoyed at this, Sakura turned towards Ino to relieve some stress on her former friend. I'm surprised, said Sakura with her best serious face. I heard you're lusting after Naruto these days, but to see it in action. What? Ino shrieked. Who told you? Ino stopped when a kunai was past her face, slicing her cheek open. Both she and Sakura were frozen in horror at the sight of a smirking woman who suddenly appeared out of nowhere, wrapping her hands around Ino's shoulders seductively. The clearly insane person gave Ino's bleeding cheek a tentative lick before chuckling creepily. Young, loud, and your blood tastes so sweet, the women cooed in Ino's ear. Just the sort of person who dies first in these kinds of things. Why don't you quiet down a little, Ino-chan? What are you doing here? Stuttered Ino. Why, I'm the proctor of the second portion of the exam, said the woman, straightening herself and speaking loud enough for everyone to hear her. For those who don't know me, my name is Mitarashi Enko, and this training ground is called Forest of Death. You will spend 5 days inside, or as long as you need to reach the tower in the center. Oh, and there's this thing with 2 opposing scrolls you need to acquire. Sakura's apprehension increased when she heard what they were supposed to do. This setup quite literally demanded that they attack other teams if they wished to pass into the final portion of the exam, and Sakura thought Team 7 looked like an easy target. An even easier one while split. Not that it deterred Naruto. The moment they entered the forest, he dashed forward into the trees, and though Sasuke and Sakura tried to go after him, they quickly lost his trail. It was hardly surprising, as he had demonstrated his ability to evade Sakura's and Sasuke's pursuit on numerous occasions before. Idiot, hissed Sasuke. We didn't even set up a code for confirming identities for when we regroup. Somehow, Sakura felt that was the least of their worries. I must admit, out of all rookie teams I had, though yours was the most likely one to fail this part of the test, said Naruto. Please, said Ino. There is nothing that I cannot weasel out of people when I get my mind on it. The hardest part was getting Shikamaru out of bed this early in the morning. Shikamaru grunted beside her, yawning. Why aren't you with your team, Naruto? Naruto glanced back at Sasuke and Sakura and sighed. Sasuke didn't want to talk with anyone and Sakura decided to keep him company, he said. I can only take their company in small doses. Maybe Ino here should visit them a bit. You know, said Ino, rubbing her chin, that may not be such a bad idea. And thus she skipped off towards Naruto's teammates, jumping at Sasuke and starting a row with Sakura as a result. So what do you think our chances are? Asked Chuji, offering his bag of chips to Naruto. I don't know, said Naruto, crunching down on the offered food. We won't know until we try, won't we? Come on, said Shikamaru. We know you're always well informed about this kind of things. Like I said, I don't know, said Naruto. The test will probably involve fighting of some sort, and the gathered candidates look pretty strong. Look guys, I don't mean to sound conceited or anything, but are you sure you're up for this? No, said Shikamaru flatly. But Ino won't let us quit. It's your fault really, she's convinced she's competing with you or something. Troublesome blondes. Naruto shook his head. Just stay away from the sand team, okay? They won't think twice about killing you. Saying a quick goodbye to Chuji and Shikamaru, he continued his inspection of the gathered genin teams. He knew that he attracted the attention of every team present by talking to Team 8 and Team 10, and it was only going to get worse as he continues with this, but hey. What a fortune to meet you in this place, Naruto-kun. Lee shouted behind Naruto, startling him. Give it your all and let our fires burn brightly enough to. He means good luck in the test, said Tenten with a sigh. Naruto looked at them. Lee was the same as ever, in his green clothes and bowl cut, energetic and enthusiastic. The girl, Tenten, if he remembered Lee's description of his teammates, looked rather nervous. Strange. Why would she be nervous, aside from the whole Chunin exam thing? And he didn't think any teammate of Lee's would be nervous about that. A quick glance to her side and Naruto knew the reason. Neji Hyuga, the third member of Team Guy. Naruto knew from Lee that Neji was a prodigy, like Sasuke, and a bit of an asshole, like Sasuke. Not that Lee phrased it that way, that would be most unyouthful, but Naruto could read between the lines. Hey! Said Naruto cheerfully, outstretching a hand to Neji. Pleased to meet you, Neji-san. Lee told me so much about you. I'm Uzumaki Naruto. Neji glanced at Naruto's hand like it was the most disgusting thing he had ever seen and straightened himself up. Oh fine, have it your way, said Naruto. I know the drill, I have a guy just like you in my team already. Really? Asked Neji with barely hidden contempt. I suppose you're referring to the Uchiha. His name is Sasuke, said Naruto. The Uchiha may be an ass, but he was Naruto's ass. Wait, that didn't come out right. Fate has decreed that you will lose today, said Neji. No matter how much you try to worm your way into people's good graces, you will always be a failure. Naruto's eyes narrowed. What the fuck is that supposed to mean? We need to go now, said Tenten, backing away and dragging her two teammates with her. Good luck and all, see you at the final exam, bye. Naruto watched them go, glaring at the Hyuga's back and fuming. What the fuck was that all about? Fate? Failure? He hadn't been given that kind of crap for a while now, and at hearing it made him want to punch someone. A Hyuga someone. What the hell was the deal with that guy, anyway? At least Sasuke had the excuse of having his entire clan slaughtered. Oh well, Enko was here so they could finally start this damn exam. The whole threat of invasion thing had sapped any enthusiasm for the event he might have otherwise had, and now he just wanted to corner the Sand team and wring some information out of them. Oh yes, Sasori promised to tell him everything when this was done, but patience was never Naruto's strong side. If he does manage to incapacitate the other Jinchuriki and disable his teammates, it won't hurt to slap a mind control seal on them and make them talk, right? Losing Sasuke and Sakura was easy, and locating Gaara even easier. The Sand Jinchuriki had a very distinctive chakra signature, almost certainly because of the massive amounts of demonic chakra constantly seeping into his coils. With luck, he should be done in a couple of hours, and Sasuke and Sakura will barely notice he was gone. How much trouble can they get themselves in within a few measly hours? He wondered how Kabuto was going to find him in this giant forest without a sensor seal like the one Naruto had, but it turned out he didn't have to find him. They were after the same target, after all, so all he had to do was find Gaara and wait for Naruto to show up. Gaara, it turned out, made no attempt to hide whatsoever, even from mundane scrutiny. So what is the plan? Naruto asked. You tell me, shot back Kabuto. You're in charge of this operation. Me? Asked Naruto incredulously. He had assumed that age alone would make Kabuto the leader here, to mention nothing of his greater experience. Sasori's orders, Kabuto confirmed. Besides, I have watched the target for a while now, and I'm sad to say I have nothing in my arsenal that could take him down. He already killed 2 teams and the exam has barely started. Since I have no idea of the full extent of your abilities, you're the only one who knows best what you can do to incapacitate him. What can you tell me about them? Asked Naruto after a moment of silence. The Jinchuriki seem to be based solely on using the sand for both offense and defense. He prefers to remain still and relies on his sand to protect him from anything coming his way. So if I sneak up on him from behind, try Naruto. Kabuto shook his head. The sand defense is automatic. It must be controlled by the demon itself. Crap. Still, not moving is a pretty serious weakness. Maybe he can't attack unless he really concentrates on it. How does he use his sand to attack? He crushes people, said Kabuto with a nasty grin. He lets his enemies try whatever they want on him for a few minutes, and then his sand catches them and he crushes them. Very sadistic. You say that like you admire him, scowled Naruto. I do in a way, said Kabuto. He's quite an interesting person. I do hope you'll let me study him while you're designing a suppression overlay for his seal. The long-term effect of demonic chakra on a human body is such an interesting topic. That's assuming we can incapacitate him at all, mumbled Naruto. And what about his teammates? The girl is obviously a fan user, but what about he's a guy, right? Kankuro. Yes, he's a guy. I'm pretty sure he's a puppeteer, though truthfully neither he nor the girl participated in any fights so far. They just stay back and let Gaara deal with anyone they come across. I think they're afraid to get in between him and his kills, Naruto sighed. It was disappointing that his fellow Jinchuriki ended up like that, and Naruto couldn't help but wonder what his life was like, but he wouldn't let his compassion get in the way again. A situation like the one with Zabuza and Haku would not be repeated. Gaara was an enemy and would get treated as such. Then he remembered what Kabuto said the moment earlier and grinned. Puppeteer? Said Naruto excitedly. Naruto, warned Kabuto. What? Naruto protested. We're supposed to neutralize his teammates anyway. Sasori never specified the means. A puppet battle qualifies. Hell, I bet Sasori would heartily approve. Maybe, conceded Kabuto. But how exactly do you plan on preventing the other two from interfering? Oh, that's easy, said Naruto. He flipped through a handful of hand seals and the pond beside Gaara's team erupted into thick white mist that covered the entire area. Take care of the girl, said Naruto, immediately performing another technique. I don't need her blowing away the mist with her fan. My earth clones will keep Gaara busy while I fight the puppeteer. And with that, Naruto summoned a dozen earth clones and jumped into the mist. Kankuro wasn't worried about the mist at first. It was a preparation for an attack, yes, but all the genin candidates in this test were a joke in his humble opinion. As seconds went past, though, he began to feel a little worried. Why hadn't his sister blown this thing away already? And everything was eerily silent, too. Hi! Kankuro whirled around, coming to face the blonde genin they met a few days earlier before the exam. The little brat seemed to be alone. Kankuro tried to subtly check his surroundings for the blonde's teammates, but the mist was ruining his environmental awareness. What the hell was Temari doing? For that matter, what was Gaara doing? There was no way that little psycho would stand on the sidelines when an opportunity to spill blood came to him like this. Man, don't tell me you came here all by yourself? Said Kankuro mockingly, hoping to get the boy to reveal his hand. You need at least 10 little squirts like yourself to even threaten me. Yes, I'm powerful this, you suck that. Why don't we skip the dick waving and go straight to the puppet battle, shall we? The blonde said, retrieving a scroll from his belt. Puppet battle? Said Kankuro incredulously. You've got to be kidding me. What would a Konoha ninja like you know? It was impossible. The San zealously guarded the secrets of puppeteering, to the point of assassinating ninja who were trying to develop similar abilities without help from stolen Suna knowledge. Only a tiny number of people had access to the puppet schematics necessary to build one. Buying one was only possible through special channels, and learning the ins and outs of puppeteering required apprenticeship to an established puppeteer. There was no way for a random Konoha genin to get a hold of even one puppet, let alone 5. What the hell is this? Kankuro stuttered. He was definitely looking at a collection of puppets, even if they were unfamiliar ones. Who are you? The centipede-like puppet coiled protectively around the blonde unhinged its mandibles and Kankuro got the feeling he should move. Think fast, the blonde said. Kankuro wasn't particularly physically fit, but he was no slouch either. He dived to the side, evading the jet of water aimed at him, and unwrapped his puppet from the bindings. He had no idea what was going on, but he wasn't going to just stand around and take it. It took less than a minute for Kankuro to conclude that he had no chance against the Konoha genin, if he was indeed a genin, and not some kind of ANBU sent to take him and his team out before the invasion. The blonde was controlling 5 puppets at once, each one better than Kankuro's own, and Kankuro was too confused to think clearly. How the hell did a Konoha ninja come in possession of these puppets? Was Kankuro fighting a rogue Suna ninja in disguise? Questions swarmed his mind, making it hard to concentrate on the fight itself. Which was bad because his opponent was clearly becoming agitated. Is this all? The blonde asked crankily. Is this really all a Suna puppeteer can do? I know you're still a genin, but this is just pathetic. I was hoping to test my skills against you, but it seems I've got nothing to learn from you. Before Kankuro could return, the 2 flea-shaped puppets sprung into the air, launching a hail of needles at Kankuro from 2 different directions. Kankuro would have scoffed at the attempt to box him in, had the blonde not taken advantage of Kankuro's evasion to attack Karasu. A jet of pressurized water slammed into Kankuro's beloved puppet, turning it into splinters and sawdust in an instant. All Kankuro could do was stare in shock at the remains. He barely registered when the next batch of needles from the flea puppets embedded itself into him, but the poison-induced sleepiness was hard to miss. You destroyed. Karasu, growled Kankuro at the Konoha ninja, swaying dangerously. I swear. I'll come back from hell itself to haunt you. Oh, that won't be necessary, the blonde said cheerfully. We'll see each other in the flesh soon enough. I need you alive, after all. Too tired to think about what that meant, Kankuro simply collapsed into unconsciousness. Well, though Naruto to himself. This was disappointing. Naruto! Bellowed Gaara from deeper inside the mist, making himself heard even through the sound-dampening effects of the hidden mist technique. You think clones can bring me down? Do not mock me, Naruto. I want a real fight, with an enemy that screams and bleeds. Quit hiding and fight me, one monster versus another. Naruto directed Centipede to fire a jet of water in the direction of Gaara's crazed rant. He didn't know if he hit anything, but he was rewarded by 2 sand projectiles flying towards him. Fortunately for Naruto, Beetle and Centipede could halt them without falling apart. Naruto narrowed his eyes and thought about the situation he found himself in. He couldn't afford to slowly escalate this conflict. If Gaara was anything like him when he draws on the fox, he could shrug off anything Naruto threw at him, including knockout poisons. His eyes widened. Of course. The fox. True, he hated using it, but surely fighting against a psychopathic Jinchuriki counted as an emergency. Absolutely, agreed the fox in the back of his mind. Only a bijou can stand up to another bijou. Naruto sealed away his puppets and dodged another sand projectile Gaara launched at him, and then drew on the fox's tainted chakra. The feeling was amazing. It was like raw power was coursing through his veins and he felt like he could do anything. His vision became tinted in red and bloodlust threatened to overwhelm his mind, but he somehow summoned enough self-control to resist charging at Gaara in mindless rage and pulled out a sealing tag he prepared before the exam started. Then he charged. And boy was it a charge worth remembering. Powered by the fox's demonic chakra, he moved so fast the entire world blurred for a moment, his eyes unaccustomed to dealing with such speeds. Then, he was in front of shocked Gaara, who barely had enough time to brace himself when Naruto slammed his fist into the other Jinchuriki's face. Driven by the bloodlust, Naruto slammed into Gaara again and again, the sealing tag forgotten in his hand. Sand swirled around Gaara, futilely trying to protect him and failing. Naruto currently had enough raw strength to simply punch through Gaara's sand barriers. Finally, Gaara recovered enough presence of mind to react to this new development, and the first thing he did was scream. The high-pitched keening broke Naruto out of his own trance, and he watched horrified as sand swirled excitedly around Gaara, sticking to him and forming some kind of monster overlaid over the red-headed child. Fuck, hissed Naruto, his own voice sounding alien to him. Before Gaara could finish his transformation, Naruto blurred in front of him and slapped the sealing tag on his chest. He had expected screaming, but instead Gaara's eyes just glazed over and he collapsed on the ground like a wet napkin. Wow. This whole thing was not nearly as hard as he imagined it would be. I told you should use my power, the fox said smugly. Did you see how easy everything is when you let go of your paranoid inhibitions and work with me? You should. Naruto let the Kyuubi's chakra recede from his system, almost collapsing from withdrawal shock. It was creepy how weak he felt without. Wait a minute. He quickly performed a diagnostic technique on himself and hissed angrily when he got the results. Fox. Naruto growled out loud. Did you honestly think I wouldn't notice how much damage your chakra did to me? How many years of my life did I just shave with this stunt? A few, Kyuubi admitted, and you never. Naruto stopped himself. Of course the fox never saw fit to mention this. For some reason, the fox was trying to encourage him to use its power, and knowing about the downsides was only going to interfere with that goal. You know what? I'm not talking to you anymore. Wisely, the fox chose not to say anything anymore. It took him 2 minutes to repair the worst of the damage, during which the mist finally dispersed and Kabuto saw fit to finally show himself. Took you long enough, said Naruto. The girl didn't look that tough. Ah, no, she wasn't, said Kabuto. She too much of a long-range fighter to stand up to me. But we can't really leave her and the puppeteer out here in the open where anyone and anything can kill them, can we? They have to be alive if Gaara is to pass to the next stage of the test. And since you didn't seem to worry about that, so what did you do with them? Asked Naruto curiously. I made a makeshift shelter for them and covered it with a genjutsu, said Kabuto. We can put Gaara there as well once you're finished with him. Right. I suppose I should start right now before What is it? Said Kabuto, slipping into a combat stance. Naruto clutched his aching wrist harder and closed his eyes. The alarms I placed on a certain scroll are going off like mad, said Naruto finally, opening his eyes and locking his eyes with Kabuto's. It seems my teammates managed to get themselves into serious trouble after all. When Naruto reached his teammates, Kabuto trailing behind him with Gaara slung across his back, it was all over. Whomever the attackers were, they worked fast. Fortunately, they didn't appear interested in killing, because both Sasuke and Sakura were alive. Sakura more than Sasuke though. The last Uchiha was lying on a makeshift bed, muttering incoherently as he twisted in restless sleep. Sakura watched over him, deathly pale and quiet. She panicked when they approached, at first, but calmed down after a few seconds. She didn't attack him for leaving them alone like he did, or even shout at him, and this scared Naruto more than anything. He should have known something was wrong when the Operation Retrieve Gaara went so smoothly. Why did it have to be like this? Every time things go his way, some kind of crap always surfaces to ruin his day. Sakura, said Naruto cautiously, what happened here? The grass ninja came, she said blandly. It was horrible. I could see myself dying over and over again and I couldn't even move. She said she came for Sasuke, and she bit him. Right here in the neck. Naruto looked at the spot Sakura indicated and breathed deeply in shock. Orochimaru's curse seal, said Naruto. Yes, shouted Sakura. That's the name she dropped at the end, before she left. She told me to make sure Sasuke didn't die, as if I knew how. I'm not a medic. I don't know how to do that. It's your fault. We're teammates, and we should have stuck together. If you've been here then maybe. Naruto enveloped Sakura in a hug to calm her down. He felt rather guilty about this whole thing, and besides, she should really tone it down a little unless she wants to summon every enemy team in the vicinity to their location. I'm sorry Sakura, I screwed up, said Naruto. But look on the bright side. I know what was done to Sasuke and how to treat it. And look. This here is Kabuto, my teacher in the medic nin arts. Sasuke will be up and running in no time. Sakura focused her attention to Kabuto, who grinned good-naturedly and waved back at her. Naruto, said Sakura cautiously. Who is that boy he's carrying on his shoulder? Oh, that's just Gaara, said Naruto dismissively, hoping she won't be too curious. I've got some unspecified business with him, so we brought him along. Unspecified business? Asked Sakura incredulously. Very unspecified, confirmed Kabuto with a creepy grin. Just help Sasuke, okay? Sakura said. It was easier said than done. While Naruto had found a way to block the curse seal on Anko, he neglected the possibility that Orochimaru refined his seal since that time. And he did. The seal on Sasuke was far more complex, and Naruto wasn't dealing with a healthy person that could withstand the sealing process with ease. Sasuke was on the verge of dying as it is, what with all the far-reaching change the seal was inducing in his body. And on top of that, Naruto had to seal away Gaara before the suppression seal wore off, unless he wanted a very irate, very destructive Jinchuriki going psycho on him. Since Gaara was a more pressing concern, he fobbed off Sasuke to Kabuto while he concentrated on sealing the redhead. With Kabuto stabilizing Sasuke, there was very little chance of his broody teammate dying, so he could wait for a while. As a bonus, Kabuto would examine this new seal Orochimaru had used, saving Naruto some time when he finishes things on his end. The best way to describe the seal that contained Shikaku in Gaara's body would be inadequate. A hack job was not uncalled for either. Some of the horrible design choices could be explained by the desire to let the host access its demon to a greater degree than a regular Jinchuriki could, but even that couldn't excuse all of them. In particular, the fact that Gaara's mind hadn't been shielded from possession could only be explained by incompetence, as Naruto doubted Sand wanted this feature. Naruto knew that designing an overlay was going to be no easy feat, but this was just irritating. He couldn't simply seal away Shikaku completely because Gaara was even more dependent on demonic chakra for survival than Naruto was, and because the boy had to be strong enough to pass on to the next phase of the exam. He also found himself feeling somewhat sorry for boy in front of him. In Gaara he saw what could have become of him had Sasori not came along, and had the old man not protected him from the brunt of the villagers' wrath. Of course, this compassion didn't prevent Naruto from embedding a suicide switch in the back of Gaara's neck, set to activate if Gaara ever lets Shikaku loose. The suicide switch was a crude and unreliable solution, but Naruto just didn't know what else to do. The seal was so lossy and broken that blocking Shikaku out of Gaara's mind was virtually impossible, if Gaara wanted him to take over. So Naruto settled for fortifying Gaara's abilities to fight off possession while adding a motivator for Gaara to fight against possession at all costs. He also capped the amount of demonic chakra Gaara would be able to draw. He should still be capable of handling the genin in the test, but he would not be able to constantly escalate the fight to ever greater degrees of destructiveness. After spending nearly 24 hours in his Mindscape and expending most of his chakra to compress Gaara's brand new seal, Naruto was barely keeping himself conscious, so he simply dropped to the ground and closed his eyes for some well-deserved rest. Kiba carefully secreted a kunai into his hand, his eyes glued to his target. Closer, closer, that's right, just a little more. Kiba! Sounded Taiya's shrill voice. What the fuck are you doing? It's that bird over there, Kiba said. I don't like how it's looking at us. Leave the fucking bird alone and pay attention to the fucking target. Taiya spat. Who the hell made you the leader? Kiba protested. Both of you shut up or I'll kill you, Kimimaro spoke calmly. You're going to alert Uzumaki to our presence. There is no room for mistakes in this endeavor. Kiba narrowed his eyes. He missed Sakan and Jirobo. He never thought he'd say that, but he did. Kimimaro was an asshole, and Kiba wished the sickly bastard stayed connected to the life support machines instead of bossing them around like this. Besides, what was so hard about this mission anyway? The kid was sleeping. For Kami's sake, they should just snipe off the pink-haired girl and the medic and move in. Problem solved. Kiba could do it all by himself. Finally, after 5 minutes of pointless deliberation, the attack was ready to begin. Kimimaro and Taiya were already in position, having surrounded the makeshift camp their target resided in, while Kitamaro stayed where he is, as this was a perfect position for him to fire from. He fired an arrow into the gray-haired medic, signaling the start of the operation. The first sign that something was wrong was when the arrow passed through the medic like he wasn't there. The second was when Kimimaro failed to burst into the clearing like he was supposed to. The third was when Kitamaro heard a flutter or wings behind him. He turned around just in time for the bird he wanted to kill earlier to explode right into his face, killing him. Sound Team's attack didn't start well. Chapter 13 Breaking Point. And the whole thing started so well, mentally whined Naruto as he dove to the side, narrowly avoiding the bone projectiles Kagaya launched at him. The moment his hands touched the ground, he coiled his whole body like a spring and flipped back to his feet, evading Kagaya's attempt to spear him through with a bone sticking out of his palm. Naruto's bandages lashed out against the bone wielder, only to get deflected by bone spikes that suddenly shot out from various parts of Kagaya's body. Hey, Hedgehog-san, why are you after me anyway? Asked Naruto in the momentary lull in the battle. The Kagaya frowned, though whether it was because of the nickname Naruto gave him or because of the question he asked, Naruto couldn't tell, and renewed his attack. Naruto gritted his teeth as he deflected the attack with a makeshift shield made from his bandages. Him and his thrice-damned curiosity. If he had only killed the Kagaya immediately, like he did with the multi-armed archer teammate of his, he wouldn't be in this position right now. But no, he had to try and interrogate him, to find out who they were and why they were after him. Capture the obvious leader, he had thought. He looked sickly and weak anyway, he had thought. You'd think he, of all people, would know that appearances could be deceiving. There was a loud crash somewhere in the vicinity, and Naruto frowned. Kabuto and Sakura were supposed to deal with the red-headed girl, but clearly she was no pushover either. The massive chakra flare his sensor seal detected from their direction a while ago worried him. No genin should be able to produce something like that. For that matter, the Kagaya was no genin either. He thanked his lucky star that he had the sense to kill their third teammate outright. He'd probably be already dead if he had to dodge arrows on top of everything. Are there any actual genin in this exam? Mumbled Naruto to himself, before throwing the scroll that contained his puppets in the air. Hopefully Sakura will stay away and won't see anything incriminating. But at this point he didn't care. The Kagaya was going to kill him if he doesn't start fighting his seriously. He had a faint hope that the sudden appearance of his puppets would make the Kagaya freeze in his tracks and give him a second or two to kill him before he can gather his wits. But it was not to be. The grim-faced bone user was utterly unfazable, and dodged Centipede's guillotine-like mandibles with contemptuous ease. It just wasn't fair. Not only did the guy had flawless control over his bloodline, which should be extinct, but never mind, he also moved with unearthly grace that allowed his to dodge and block everything Naruto sent his way. Still, with Centipede and Beetle defending him, Naruto was immune to Kagaya's attacks, and the man was reduced to evading various weaponry Naruto's puppets launched at him. After he realized that overwhelming force won't work, Naruto refrained from wasting his puppet's ammunition supply and instead focused on tiring his opponent out and outmaneuvering him. The Kagaya, for all his skills, was clearly in bad health and had trouble breathing. His stamina would not last much longer. The Kagaya seemed to realize this, because he suddenly stopped and gave Naruto a hard glare. I will not fail him, he said calmly, and Naruto had the urge to ask him who exactly is him. The Kagui continued in an ominous tone. He has called for your death, and he shall have it. Even if it's the last thing I ever do. Fuck, Naruto said. This is the kind of admission immediately followed by a suicide technique. The top of Beetle split open and launched 3 cylinders full of explosive notes at the man, and Centipede wrapped itself protectively around Naruto to shield him from the blast. A massive explosion tore the trees around Kagaya to pieces and kicked up a cloud of dust that obscured the entire area. For a couple of seconds Naruto was certain this was it as far as the Kagaya was concerned, but a brown blur shot out of the mist, smashing Roach to bits and charging at him. The pale, sickly appearance of the Kagaya was gone, and in his place stood an almost literal demon, a dark-skinned humanoid with a tail and a multitude of bone spikes jutting from his back, gripping what appeared to be his own spine in his hand. Naruto snapped the chakra string connecting him to the fleas and Roach. He doubted he would get enough time to reform Roach, and the fleas were useless against this kind of opponent. They were delicate, precise weapons, and the monstrous Kagaya had already survived a massive explosion with no visible consequences. The monster in front of him swung with the spine in his hand, and Centipede contorted itself to deflect the blow. Naruto idly observed the deep grooves carved in the wood by the Kagaya's weapon, and directed Centipede to close its mandibles around Kagaya's torso. This close, his opponent couldn't dodge and the mandibles bit deep into the tainted flesh, only to get stopped by the nigh-impenetrable bone of Kagaya's ribcage. Naruto realized he should have directed Centipede to bite lower, into Kagaya's stomach, but before he could correct his mistake the man swung his spine again. Centipede contorted itself again around Naruto, still gripping the Kagaya in its jaws, but instead of rebounding of Centipede's wooden carapace the weapon suddenly became flexible enough to bend around its body and spear Naruto's shoulder. Naruto screamed and instinctively directed Centipede to fling Kagaya into a nearby tree before the man could capitalize on his sudden weakness. Only dimly aware of where the bone user landed due to the pain-induced blindness, Naruto directed Beetle to shower the entire area with poison needles, hoping to delay the man until he recovers a bit. Fortunately, whatever technique Kagaya was seemed to be making him more than a little reckless, because he mindlessly charged straight at Naruto without a single evasive maneuver. A jet of water that slammed him into the tree again put an end to that. It was a testament to the Kagaya's resilience that the high-pressure jet didn't tear him apart outright. Instead it only left a deep gauge across his chest and left him unable to move. The technique he was using expired and his body reverted to his original appearance. With great difficulty, the Kagaya managed to raise his head to glare defiantly at Naruto, just before the blonde Jinchuriki slammed a kunai into his eyeball, killing him on the spot. His task done and his adrenaline rush receding, Naruto sank to the ground and clutched his shoulder. Waves of pain were radiating from it, and he was tempted to call upon the fox to heal him. But he wouldn't. There was something rotten about using Fox's chakra, and he wasn't going to use it until he finds out what it was. Instead he did his best to heal his wound with a standard medical technique. It wouldn't heal him completely, but it would be better than just leaving it to bleed. He barely closed the wound when Sakura's unconscious body skidded across the ground in front of him. Naruto whirled around, only to come face to face with the third member of the supposed genin team that just tried to assassinate him. He knew that Sakura wasn't dead because she carried a sensor scroll that told him as much, but Kabuto was nowhere in sight and that worried him. "Your asshole friends were good, but not good enough," the redhead leered. "The medic more so than the pink-haired whore, but then again she's an actual genin unlike you and him." Naruto quickly looked over her. Despite her confident behavior, she was radiating anxiety. She was doing an admirable effort to hide it, but her entire body was shaking lightly from obvious exhaustion. She was barely even standing, but Naruto wasn't exactly in top shape himself. "You are exhausted and your teammates are dead," Naruto said, trying to evade battle. "You are in state to fight me. Just flee, okay? There is no need for you to die here." She smirked, and before Naruto could do anything she brought a flute to her lips, producing the most horrible sound Naruto ever heard in his life. The ear-splitting tune echoed inside Naruto's mind, tearing at his mind. Amplified by his sensitive hearing, the sound-based technique was utterly irresistible. An almost tangible wall of vertigo slammed into him, and he sank to his knees and vomited. All rational thought left him, leaving behind only desperate, unfocused desire to make the horrible noise stop. He rolled around the ground pitifully, his eyes shut, his hands pressed against his ears so tightly it hurt in a futile attempt to block out the sound. Abruptly, the noise stopped. It took Naruto a few seconds to recover enough to open his eyes, and he found himself staring at the horrified face of the red-headed girl that incapacitated him. She was clutching a kunai in her hand, her arm raised in an overhead strike that was surely meant to end Naruto's life. Yet despite the hostile gesture, she was motionless and clearly frightened out of her mind. After a few moments Naruto's vision cleared some more, and he suddenly realized why she was so scared. Everything except her face and hand was enveloped in a cocoon of sand. Out of the frying pan and into the fire though Naruto, as he felt sand swirling around his body. It was strange, Gaara reflected. One moment he was fighting against Uzumaki Naruto, and the next he was lying in some kind of makeshift shelter with another boy beside him. He had no memory of anything in between those two moments. Gaps in memory like these were a fairly common occurrence for Gaara, but usually whenever he blanked out he found himself surrounded by rubble and corpses upon coming to his senses. This time, everything seemed peaceful. Mother's ranting was reduced to nothing but a hateful whisper, so soft he could almost pretend it wasn't there if he tried, and he felt surprisingly good. Calm. Clear-headed. Rested. Then a deafening explosion broke his reverie, causing him to bolt upright in a swirl of sand. His sand felt, for the lack of a better term, sluggish, but Gaara dismissed it as after-effects of whatever technique Uzumaki Naruto did to him. The blonde genin defeated him with humiliating ease, a fact that Gaara filed away in the back of his mind for the moment. He would think about his defeat later. Right now he had to find out where he was and how much time has passed. After throwing a glance to the dark-haired boy lying next to him and confirming he was no threat, Gaara started walking towards the cloud of dust he could see in the distance. He reached the site just as the red-headed girl was about to kill the blonde child that had defeated him. No, that wasn't right. Naruto was no child. He was a monster, just like Gaara. He told him so right when they met. Gaara had felt the blonde's bloodlust when they fought earlier, seen the murderous crimson eyes that demanded his death, and he knew the boy's claim to be true. This girl, whomever she was, had no right to end the boy's existence. That honor was reserved for Gaara, and Gaara alone. Besides, he wanted answers, ones he suspected only Naruto could give him. He willed it, and his sand shot out, encasing the surprised girl in a cocoon of sand. She was clearly exhausted, because she didn't even notice the sand until it was too late, much less try to dodge it. Noticing that his control over his sand was still suffering, he tried to tap deeper into the demon's power, only to find that he could not. A jolt of fear ran down his spine. What the hell was going on? He looked at the blonde genin moaning on the ground. It was him, Gaara was sure of it. He directed his sand to encase the blonde as well, before the boy could recover and make a fool out of him again. He considered crushing the red-headed girl like a grapefruit, if only because he wanted some privacy for his upcoming talks/interrogation with the blonde. But in his current state that would take a lot out of him, and he needed every advantage he could get in case Naruto uses his strange red power again. The girl didn't even try to escape, so he applied just enough pressure to keep her paralyzed but otherwise conserved his power. He was just about to strengthen his hold on Naruto when he felt something click around his neck, holding him in place. Though the pressure exerted on his neck was light and barely perceptible, Gaara knew better than try to wrench himself free. Turning his head slightly, he could see a huge wooden centipede behind him, its mandibles ready to decapitate him at a moment's notice. Gaara had seen enough puppets in his life to recognize one, but the sight was shocking nonetheless. How, what? Why don't you let go of me and I will do the same to you? The blonde genin said conversationally. Seriously, the sand itches. Gaara stared at the boy in front of him, not understanding anything. Questions swarmed in his mind for a second, before one particular question bubbled up at the forefront of his mind. This shouldn't be happening. Gaara blurted out. My automatic sand defense. Yeah, I kind of disabled that, Naruto said with a sigh. Or more precisely, it was a side effect of blocking Shikaku's ability to interface with you. What? Gaara asked, still uncomprehending. I know you're planning on setting Shikaku loose in the middle of Konoha, Naruto said. I can't allow that. But I can't kill you either, so I knocked you out and tweaked your seal while you were sleeping. Unfortunately, you're so tightly bonded to your demon that I couldn't just cut you off from him, but it will not be able to aid you as directly as it did before. Your automatic defense no longer works because Shikaku has no control of it anymore. If you want your sand to defend you, you will have to direct it yourself. A wave of terror gripped Gaara's heart, thought he managed to keep him impassive with the help of his sand armor. His automatic defense was the only thing keeping him alive up to this point. Sure, he could direct his sand on his own, but he didn't have eyes on the back of his head and his reactions were nowhere near fast enough to deal with Jounin opponents. He'll be dead within days. His own countrymen will jump at the chance to finally end his cursed existence. The only this acting as a deterrent right now was, oh, I almost forgot, continued Naruto after a short silence. I also placed a suicide switch on you. If you are ever possessed by Shikaku, you will die. Hope you can keep your demon under control. Gaara stared at the blonde impassively, but inside his mind he was a maelstrom of thoughts and emotions. Undo it, he ordered finally. No, Naruto stated flatly. Gaara's eyes narrowed in frustration. He was unused to people denying him things, especially with such directness. I could crush you, he intoned threateningly. I could chop your head off, shot back Naruto, twitching his fingers and causing the wooden centipede to tighten its grip on Gaara's neck. Gaara gritted his teeth, trying to think up a solution for his present dilemma and failing. A situation like this was a complete out-of-context problem for the redhead. His usual reaction to confusing situations was to use copious amounts of sand and demonic energies to lay waste to the entire area he was currently in, and he was physically incapable of doing that right now. He could go in for the kill, but there was no doubt that the puppet could close its jaws quicker than he could constrict his sand. Besides, Mother wasn't screaming at him, inciting him to violence, and he found her absence to be confusing and even a little bit scary. The fact was, he was no match for Naruto at the moment. His sand was useless, and he didn't have any other skills worth mentioning. His automatic defense had made him invulnerable and his sand had never been defeated. Why would he bother learning anything else? His instructors never encouraged him to learn anything more either. Gaara started shaking, staring at the ground in front of him. His world was crashing down around him, and it was all Uzumaki Naruto's fault. How did he defeat him? How had he modified his seal? How did he learn puppeteering? Why was he doing this? The swirling maelstrom of thoughts suddenly halted and Gaara's muscle tremors stilled. His head snapped up, the puppet's jaws scraping against his sand armor, and his fixed Naruto with an intense stare full of clarity and determination. I don't understand, Gaara stated. Naruto blinked in surprise, before cocking his head to the side in a curious manner. Understand what? I asked people about you. The people of this village, they hate you. Fear you. Wish you were dead. I suspected even then, and now that I have faced you in battle, felt your thirst for bloodshed as we tried to end each other's existence. I am certain. I know what you are, Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto stared at Gaara impassively, his face betraying nothing. Why do you protect people that hate you? Pressed Gaara. Naruto hesitated. I want to be Hokage. A Hokage protects the people of his village. All of them. I can't. I have to protect them. Why would you want to lead the village that despises you? Insisted Gaara. Do you not hate them? Do you not wish they suffer like you do? Why extend the hand of mercy to those that deny the truth of your existence? I don't understand it. Is it about power? No! Naruto shouted. I want them to respect me. You are a demon, Gaara stated. They will never respect you. I am not a demon, Naruto hissed. I am a container for a demon. The people of this village consider you a demon, Gaara said, and that's all that matters. If they say you're a demon, then you are. You don't decide your own identity, the people around you do. If people say you're a genius, you are. If they say you're generous, you are. If they say you're a demon, bullshit. Naruto shouted, the jaws of his puppet clacking menacingly around Gaara's neck. People's opinions aren't set in stone. Even if it takes years, I will change their perceptions. I will make them respect me, make them acknowledge me. I will be a Hokage, the best damn Hokage that ever was. And don't you doubt for a second that I can't do it. Gaara stared at the blonde for a few tense seconds, watching as the blonde heaved heavily after his outburst. I believe you, the redhead said finally. Naruto blinked in surprise. You do? Yes, Gaara said. But, there is always a but. Naruto mumbled. Is it worth it? Asked Gaara softly. Huh! Speak louder. I got hit by a sonic attack recently. I asked, is it worth it? Gaara said louder. Do you really want to sink years of your life into this endeavor? To toil away for years, maybe decades, suffering indignity after indignity, just for a chance of a few empty words of praise from your tormentors? Your situation doesn't seem to be quite as hopeless as mine is. You could make your life for yourself elsewhere. Somewhere where Noon knows what you are, where the deck hasn't been stacked against you from the very beginning. Naruto said nothing. You don't know, Gaara stated. It wasn't a question. Just release me before I decapitate you. The blonde snapped irritably. After a tense couple of seconds, Gaara instructed his sand to recede, and immediately felt the puppet let go of his neck. It was at this moment that the red-headed girl decided to make a break for it. Since the sand cocoon around her was mostly for show at this point, she succeeded in breaking out of it, but immediately collapsed on her face when a bespectacled, gray-haired man dropped down on her from a nearby tree, knocking her unconscious. I was beginning to worry about you, Naruto remarked to the man. It's embarrassing, but I kind of got a branch driven through my stomach and lost consciousness. It's always the little things that get to you, the gray-haired man said with pleasant smile. Right, sighed Naruto. Gaara, why don't you leave now? Your teammates should be fine, so go find them and finish this exam. I'm sure we'll get plenty of opportunity to discuss life philosophies later. Gaara considered this for a moment, before calmly turning away and stalking off in a random direction. He was clearly overmatched at the moment, and he needed to think before he committed himself to a course of action. Usually Mother would have incited him to bloodshed by now, consequences be damned, but she was reduced to a hateful whisper now, a testament to the power his fellow monster wielded over him. Gaara! The blonde called after him. Gaara stopped in his tracks but did not turn to face Naruto. I realize you're an emotionally stunted murderer that cannot really empathize with other people, but if you kill or seriously hurt any of the Konoha ninja in this exam, I'll skin you alive and leave you buried up to your neck next to an anthill. Did I make myself clear? Gaara continued walking, not bothering with an answer. After helping Naruto stabilize Sakura, Kabuto left and took the sand kunoichi with him, claiming that the redhead has vital information about invasion plans that has to be brought to Sasori immediately. How he intended to make her talk Naruto didn't inquire. Better for his peace of mind that way. Despite the beating she took, Sakura was essentially alright. The leg fractures would take a few days to fully heal, but she suffered no irreversible damage, which probably said more about the sound nin's ignorance of where to strike than lack of desire to cripple the opponent. Sometimes Naruto forgot that not every ninja is a medic nin. Naruto still felt sorry for her though. She spent so much time trying to improve herself, only to lose this badly when faced with an actual opponent. He knew that the sound kunoichi was not a genin, and that it was amazing that Sakura lasted as long as she did against her, but he also knew that Sakura would not see it that way. Emotions were funny that way. With that out of the way, Naruto turned his attention to Sasuke and that thrice-damned curse seal Orochimaru placed on him. Naruto didn't know whether to admire Orochimaru for making something so complex and powerful, or shudder at the thought of how many people had to die to refine the seal into what Naruto was currently looking at. Compared to the seal placed on Anko, Sasuke's curse seal was far more extensive. For one thing, Sasuke's seal was trying to give him a bloodline. Or at least, that's what Naruto assumed. The seal was changing Sasuke's body on a cellular level, or rather, the biological concoction Orochimaru injected into Sasuke's bloodstream was doing that, and the seal was directing the changes. And what other purpose would it have to do that? Had Kabuto not stabilized Sasuke's vitals during the critical early phases of the process, it is doubtful Sasuke would have survived the process. The mortality rate of this improved curse seal must be horrendous. The seal was also patched directly into Sasuke's brain. His brain. Doesn't Orochimaru know how dangerous that is? He would have hit Kabuto over the head for not blocking these connections as they were forming, but the notes left by the gray-haired medic stated that the seal had temporarily taken over Sasuke's autonomous functions, so severing the connections would result in organ failure. The blasted seal behaved almost like a living being, adapting to everything Kabuto and Naruto tried to do. In any case, the seal used these neural connections to exert some kind of subtle effect on the brain, increasing aggression and decreasing empathy if Naruto was reading things correctly. Plus a compulsion to use the seal as often as possible, and a control switch that allowed Orochimaru to control the seal over short distances, causing a wide variety of effect. Pain, activation of the seal, disruption of chakra usage, same thing that Anko had, so that part at least he already knew how to disable. In addition to all of that, the curse seal acted like a chakra battery, storing massive amounts of chakra that could then be dumped into the body in case of emergencies. A bunch of focusing circuits then directed this excess chakra into the user's bones, skin, and muscles, making them stronger and faster but also damaging tissue. And Naruto thought that long-term effects of Kyuubi's chakra were bad. Regular use of this thing would see the user dead in just a few years. That is, unless the bloodline the seal was giving him wasn't somehow mitigating the effects. Which it probably did. The thing was, whatever the bloodline was, it was dormant at the moment. Naruto didn't dare interrupt the implantation process after it had started in earnest, and it was pretty much done by now, which meant that either something went wrong or, more likely, that activating the bloodline required some kind of outside catalyst. Orochimaru, sly bastard that he was, probably used that as a carrot to dangle in front of people he gave the seal to. Join me and your seal won't kill you if you use it anymore. And of course, due to the compulsion woven into the seal, almost everyone with the seal will use it fairly often, probably becoming addicted to its power by the time Orochimaru comes with the offer. Naruto's face split into a nasty grin. He couldn't remove the seal, that much was obvious. But he could definitely remove the neural connections and neutralize the control switch. Both were more sophisticated than the ones on Anko, but it wasn't beyond his ability. As for the dormant bloodline, he was pretty sure he could induce it to activate by messing around with the seal. The two were so closely connected, after all. The end result, of course, would be Sasuke free of Orochimaru's influence and capable of using his curse seal without becoming addicted or hurting himself. Orochimaru was going to have a heart attack when he finds out. Suddenly a thought occurred to him, and he frowned. It's weird helping Sasuke get stronger, he mumbled, and then set to work. Talk about arriving in the last possible moment, grumbled Kiba, handing a stack of paper bills to Shino. Couldn't you have waited for another half an hour, and failed the exam just so you can win a bet? Naruto asked incredulously. Not a chance. Bah, Kiba pouted. What's with you three anyway? You arrive minutes before the deadline expires, torn and dirty like you were attacked by a wild animal. We had a rough time, okay, snapped Sakura. Rough time was an understatement, at least as far as Sakura was concerned. First, she spent the entire beginning portion of the exam worrying about Naruto, only to be attacked by an absurdly powerful grass ninja who turned out to be Orochimaru. And then she had both of her legs broken by a foul-mouthed redhead that insulted her in every imaginable way before knocking her unconscious. She then spent several days being lugged around like a total dead weight. By Naruto, of course, since Sasuke refused to so much touch her, let alone take turns carrying her. It was only yesterday that Naruto deemed her ready to walk on her own again, and she was still pretty wobbly. The last thing she needed right now was a crass idiot like Kiba telling her she looks like a wild child. That was a pot calling the kettle black situation, anyway. We were worried about you, Hinata said. Speak for yourself, Ino said snottily. I knew Sasuke-kun wouldn't let his team fail. Sakura could see Ino glancing at her, hoping for some kind of reaction, but she was in no mood for bickering. Especially not about that asshole. After the way he treated her when she was injured, she was seriously reconsidering this whole true love business. The really amusing thing was that she could have actually helped him get stronger. She had woken up far sooner than Sasuke, and Naruto had explained to her exactly what he had done about Orochimaru's curse seal. How the curse had been modified into a blessing. Sakura had been surprised how jealous it made her of Sasuke to hear that. The way Naruto spoke about his newest masterpiece, Sakura wished she had been given the curse seal instead. Sasuke didn't need that kind of power. He was already strong. She wasn't. In any case, with the neural connection severed, it took more than vogue emotions to activate the seal, and Naruto told Sakura precisely how Sasuke can activate it. For whatever reason, Naruto had no intention to tell Sasuke about it himself. It was entirely up to Sakura to decide when Sasuke is ready for that knowledge. And right now, Sakura was leaning towards never, which is why we're going to have a preliminary round to cut down on the number of participants, finished the Hokage. Sakura's attention snapped back to reality, where agitated murmurs were erupting from the gathered genin. Preliminaries? The hell? Sakura had spent the whole day walking just to get here in time. She was in no state to fight right now. A sigh from the aging Hokage drew her attention back to the village leader. Normally I would have started the preliminaries by now, Sarutobi said. But it seems the proctor is a bit late. Please talk amongst yourself while we wait for him. Sakura glanced at Kakashi, just to make sure he was still there behind her. He was talking to the other two Jounin instructors without the care in the world. Or rather, reading his horrid porn while Kurenai and Asuma talked to each other. She was being silly. She realized she was pretty sure it would be a conflict of interest to have a Jounin instructor of one of the contestants as a judge. But being late to something like this was right up his alley. The next few minutes were a blur for Sakura. Her mind was furiously thinking about the upcoming preliminaries and how to come out on top. She was pretty weak, objectively speaking, and she was currently in a bad shape to boot. The simple truth was that unless she gets paired up with a particularly weak opponent, she was going to lose. Badly. We'll talk later, she heard Kurenai say. The proctor is finally here. All eyes zeroed in on a giant toad in the middle of the arena. A white-haired man in a strange getup was dancing on the toad's head, and there was a giant sign above them proclaiming to everyone that this was the world's sexiest man, the frog sage of Myobokuzen, Jiraiya. It was hard to read a toad's facial expressions, but it seemed to Sakura that the amphibian was embarrassed to be there. Troublesome, said Shikamaru. It's an older, white-haired version of Naruto. Hey! Naruto protested. Quiet down, brats! Bellowed Jiraiya, earning him the glare of virtually every genin in the room. In case you haven't figured it out by now, my name is Jiraiya and I'll be the proctor of the preliminary round of Chunin exams this year. The fights will be dangerous. I'll try to keep injuries to a minimum, but there is always a possibility you could die. With that in mind, is there anyone who would like to drop out now, before we begin? A brief surge of killer intent shifted Sakura's attention to a member of the sand team in a black outfit and face paint. The boy looked murderous as he looked in their direction, but it quickly became obvious he wasn't glaring at Konoha Nins in general, but Naruto in particular. Naruto, for his part, seemed to be ignoring the boy's ire completely. Sakura supposed Naruto did something to the other boy while they were in the forest. He did bring that redhead unconscious to their campsite. Come to think of it, she still has to ask Naruto what that was all about. I'm afraid my teammates were incapacitated with some pretty nasty poison and are unable to compete right now, piped in a harmless-looking Konoha genin, adjusting his glasses and letting his gray hair fall over his eyes. Sakura, began Naruto. No, said Sakura firmly. I want to try. You had your legs broken just a few days ago, warned Naruto, and Sakura resisted the urge to wince at the shocked looks all the other rookies were giving her. I know I'm a pretty good medic, but still, there is no way you have recovered. Then that just means I won't be engaging in any taijutsu, doesn't it? Said Sakura with a bit of an edge in her voice. After a second of staring directly into Naruto's eyes, meeting his questioning gaze without flinching, he nodded in acceptance and shifted his attention back to the arena. Sakura breathed a sigh of relief and ignored the worrying looks everyone else was giving her. She didn't know if she was doing the right thing. She definitely knew it wasn't a smart thing. But Cammy, she needed to do this. She can't quit now, after all she suffered to get here. It mustn't have all been in vain. After waiting for a couple of seconds more to make sure no one else would give up, Jiraiya nodded to himself. Very well. Let the preliminaries begin. The first match of the day is... He pointed at the electronic board that was flashing rapidly through the names of Chunin hopefuls. Yamanaka Ino versus Haruno Sakura. Sakura took a deep breath. Don't worry, Ino said haughtily. I won't be rough, and it will all be over in a moment. Sakura didn't say anything, opting to simply descend into the arena in silence. Are you two ladies ready? Asked Jiraiya. Sure, said Sakura. Let's get this over with, Ino agreed. If this fight turned into a taijutsu battle, Sakura would definitely lose. This was a fact. Fortunately, Sakura had massively improved her ninjutsu prowess ever since she'd gotten Kakashi's notes and training sword. Her chakra reserves were several times larger, not that amazing of a feat considering how puny they were originally, and her repertoire of techniques had expanded considerably. Kakashi probably didn't even realize how many techniques could be pieced together from those notes alone. Still, if that was the extent of her ninjutsu abilities, she probably would have lost this battle anyway. As it were, she also mastered several exercises designed to develop her fire affinity, and she took the Naruto route of modifying several fire techniques using her superior chakra control and fire mastery. Maybe, just maybe, she was going to win this one. A signal was given, and Ino charged. Sakura had expected that, and was already flashing through hand seals. Phoenix Flower! Sakura yelled, and a swarm of tiny fire bolts sped towards her childhood friend and rival. Normally the Phoenix Flower bolts converged on the target rather inefficiently, but Sakura had learned that with good enough control, you could direct the bolts wherever you wished. The first wave of the bolts slammed into the ground in front of Ino, forcing her to halt her charge, while the subsequent waves forced her into retreat. Not one of them actually connected, but that was okay. They did what Sakura intended them to do. Sakura launched a hail of kunai and shuriken at Ino, and her opponent responded in kind. With great effort, Sakura managed to stealthily ensnare Ino in a genjutsu during the third exchange. It was a subtle genjutsu, one that messed around with your opponent's depth perception in barely noticeable ways. Ino gave no indication that she noticed, even when her aim suddenly took a nosedive. Knowing she was not going to last for long, Sakura flashed through the seals of Sasuke's signature technique. The Great Fireball technique was a surprisingly flexible technique, and Sakura found it relatively easy to modify it to her needs. In this particular case, she didn't want to fry Ino, she just needed a distraction. Breathed the fireball, but instead of a modest-sized ball of concentrated fire, it came out as a massive dark red sphere that obscured the line of sight between Ino and Sakura completely. Sakura could hear Ino scream as the fireball hurled towards her, but she knew her friend was going to be alright. The modified fireball was nearly impossible to dodge, but it was little more than a glorified heat wave. It just looked impressive and dangerous. The fireball lost its coherency upon slamming into Ino, popping like a soap bubble, and doing little beside disorienting the shocked blonde. It was enough though. Before Ino could recover her wits, A pair of hands grabbed her ankles and pulled her into the ground up to her neck. Silence reigned. Well, 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 said Jiraiya. And here I thought this was going to be just a silly cat fight. Good show, good show. Well, Miss Yamanaka, unless you have something up your sleeve, I pronounce Haruno Sakura the winner of the first round of preliminary exams. Sakura moved to unbury Ino, but Jiraiya shooed her away, saying he'll take care of it. As she climbed up the stairs to the view deck of the arena, she couldn't help but smile at Naruto's cheers. The victory was intoxicating. She could get used to this. Wow, Sakura, breathed Naruto. You were awesome! And here I thought a couple of leg fractures would hold you down. Ha! Shows what I know. Ino is going to be impossible now, Shikamaru sighed. She was complaining we're not training enough for a while now, and it's only going to get worse after this. I think I hate you now. You're welcome, Sakura said cheerily. Not even Shikamaru's whining can foul up her mood right now. I knew you could do it, Kakashi piped in from behind her. Really? Asked Sakura suspiciously. It wasn't like Kakashi to give pats on the back for, well, anything. More than likely he would mock and belittle you. Oh yes, he nodded enthusiastically. I was so sure I made a bet with Asuma and Kurnai. The team that sends most members into the finals wins their Jounin instructor. Kakashi, interrupted Sakura. Just stop talking. Please? Kakashi shrugged and went back to his book. What was that technique he used? Sasuke asked. It looked like a great fireball, but Sakura ignored him. That felt good too. Before he could ask again, the match board started flashing again. Inuzuka Kiba vs Temari of the Sand. Kiba hooped, pumping his fist into the air. All right. This battle is ours, Akamaru. Let's show them how it's done. Akamaru yipped enthusiastically, jumping out of his master's arms and running towards the arena in excitement. Naruto watched them go, amused at their antics. No doubt their behavior made them seem immature to the other ninja in the room, but the two were a formidable force together, especially in straightforward battles such as the ones that are likely to be fought in these preliminaries. So long as he doesn't do anything particularly stupid, he would peg victory to him. Temari seemed to be a one-trick pony, a purely long-range combatant. Once Kiba gets properly going, he'll be too fast to be caught in her wind blasts, and the moment he closes and she's done for. Evidently Temari didn't agree with Naruto's assessment, because she glided down off the balcony on her fan, a picture of perfect confidence. She didn't seem in the least bit worried. Kiba and Temari both faced each other, sizing the other one up. Temari seemed to have reached her conclusion faster, because she immediately moved to psychological warfare. You should get rid of the puppy, Temari said in a bored voice. It could get hurt. As if, Kiba said. Akamaru and I are partners. He's fighting with me. Fine, Temari said with a sigh. Judging by your looks, you'll need the help anyway. Kiba frowned at Temari's comment and dropped Akamaru to the ground, ordering it to stay out of the fight. Naruto resisted the urge to groan. Joint attacks with Akamaru formed the core of Kiba's fighting style. The girl must have realized that the two of them could attack her from opposite direction, making it impossible to concentrate her slow but powerful attacks against any single one of them without exposing her back and flanks to the other, and was trying to remove that threat. And succeeding. Was Kiba really stupid enough to purposely cripple himself like this just because his opponent managed to rile him up? It couldn't possibly be that. The mere idea was giving him a headache. The Inuzuka boy definitely has some cunning plan in his sleeve. I don't need Akamaru to defeat a girl, anyway, Kiba said with a confident grin. Naruto banged his head softly against the guardrails. Nope, no cunning plan at all. Just an overinflated ego crowding out common ninja sense. I am going to have a long talk with that boy when this is over, said Kurenai, her arms crossed over her chest. Begin, Jiraiya shouted, and Kiba immediately rushed at Temari, only to be thrown back by a gust of wind and collide with the wall of the arena. Naruto cringed. It looked really painful. Kiba scrambled up, but the sand girl didn't give him a chance to recover. She swung her fan once again, more forcefully this time, and Kiba impacted the wall again. He slumped at the floor, not to rise again. Akamaru rushed to his master, clearly in distress, but Naruto knew Kiba wasn't permanently harmed. He wouldn't get up from this, though. Well, said Naruto. That was fast. A very long talk, said Kurenai darkly. Right, Jiraiya said after Kiba was carted away and Temari vacated the arena. Next fight, Aburame Shino vs Uchiha Sasuke. Go Shino! Yelled Naruto. Kick the bastard's ass. Nah, are you too? Screeched Ino, swiping at him. She was disturbingly quiet even since her loss against Sakura, but apparently there were some things she just couldn't ignore. You should be on Sasuke's side. Oh? Asked Naruto with mock curiosity. And why is that? She's right though, Kakashi piped in. You should be cheering for your teammate, not his opponent. Shino is a better friend than Sasuke ever was, said Naruto. Still, Kakashi persisted. Down in the arena, Shino and Sasuke were simply facing one another and staring. And staring. And staring. Naruto was getting drowsy just looking at them. This was the most boring fight he had ever seen. You realize you've already lost, don't you, Kurenai? Kakashi whispered to the woman, though not quietly enough to avoid being heard by Naruto. Even if Hinata wins her battle, that still leaves you with one victory compared to 2 of mine. You shouldn't assume Shino will lose, whispered Naruto, knowing that Kakashi will hear him just fine. Shino is good. Perhaps, even better than me. Suddenly Sasuke's Sharingan blazed to life and he charged. It wasn't very surprising to Naruto. Sasuke always opened with taijutsu. It was something the boy was extremely good at, and he judged everyone based on how easily they could stand up to him in close-quarter combat. It was the main reason Sasuke never took Naruto seriously. Despite the blonde's ability to kill him without much hassle, Naruto could never stand up to Sasuke in a pure taijutsu match. Therefore he was weaker than Sasuke and had to rely on tricks to win. He seemed to be getting better about it lately, but it seemed he simply isolated Naruto as a special case instead of reconsidering his behavior in general. Of course, Sasuke had his reasons for his belief. So long as you could force your opponent to engage in taijutsu, and good enough to win using it, you were well justified in favoring it over other ninja disciplines. An opponent engaged in taijutsu didn't have time to make hand seals. Sadly for Sasuke, Shino was extremely good at taijutsu too. Better than he ever was when fighting against Naruto, the blonde realized with a pang of annoyance. And unlike Sasuke, his taijutsu wasn't based on any fancy maneuvers, so there was really nothing for Sasuke's Sharingan to copy. Shino was simply very fast and strong. It seemed the training regimen Guy gave to Shino had paid off in the end. Sasuke was fast too, but his strength left a lot to be desired. He was a speed demon, his entire fighting style based on being faster than your opponent, and with that advantage negated by Shino's own speed, he was left trying to outmaneuver Shino or get him overextend himself. It would be a long wait, Naruto knew. One of the more infuriating things about fighting Shino was his ability to not make mistakes like that. Not without some kind of distraction anyway. In the meantime, Shino was content to use his superior strength and stamina, if Naruto was reading them both correctly, to push Sasuke back. Now, Sasuke's insistence of taijutsu was proving to be a mistake, since he couldn't catch a break long enough to perform one of his many fire techniques. Since Shino's Kikai were extremely vulnerable to fire techniques and his genjutsu wouldn't work against Sasuke's Sharingan, it was unsurprising that Shino was unwilling to disengage from melee. Strange, Kakashi said behind him. Usually Aburame focus on their mastery over their Kikai. It's unusual to see one so skilled in taijutsu. Was then an undercurrent of annoyance Naruto was detecting in his voice? Well, now we can see how thoughtlessly assuming things can bring down even the greatest of geniuses. If Sasuke opted to maintain distance from Shino and rained down fire techniques on him, he probably would have won. It seems the battle is ending. Indeed, down in the arena Sasuke was clearly on the edge of exhaustion, his arms aching from blocking Shino's more powerful strikes, when Shino suddenly backed away a little, giving Sasuke a little breathing room. So relieved was Sasuke at this window of opportunity that he immediately started flashing through hand seals. He didn't even notice the Kikai swirling over his legs until it was too late. His curse seal glowed impotently, unable to give Sasuke the power it contained due to the overlay Naruto placed on it, and Sasuke collapsed on the ground unconscious. Well then, said Kurenai with a vicious smirk. It seems I'm still in the game, aren't I? Kakashi snorted derisively and buried his nose in his porn again, though the gesture was more amusing than infuriating this time, and only caused Kurenai's smirk to widen. You are certain of this? Baki said with narrowed eyes. Yes, hissed Kankuro, clearly agitated. That blonde was definitely using puppeteering. He was using multiple puppets, the likes of which I have never seen. Baki-sensei, what the hell is happening here? How can Konoha possess puppeteers? I do not know, Baki said. This is a serious matter that must be investigated more thoroughly. What is the boy's name anyway? Kankuro faltered. He never bothered to remember it. Uzumaki Naruto, spoke Gaara for the first time the conversation started, not bothering to take his eyes off the battle in the arena below. A rain ninja was utterly dominating some Miss Genin, and the fight was bloody enough to make Gaara's heart swell in anticipation of his own battle. Sadly, the odds were his battle will be against a Konoha ninja, which meant he wouldn't be allowed to paint the walls of the arena with the blood of his opponent, lest Uzumaki make good on his threat. He was no match for the other Jinchuriki at this time. Do you know what was he after? Baki asked. No, Kankuro said quickly. He just incapacitated us and left. Didn't even take our scroll. Gaara felt Tamari's eyes on his back but ignored her. He had already deflected his teammates' questions with liberal amount of death threats, as well as promised gruesome punishments if they ever let it slip he wasn't around when the two of them woke up. He couldn't keep the charade up forever. Sooner or later someone will figure out his sudden weakness, but he was sure he could keep it up for a while. At least until he figures out what to do. The medics took the bloody Miss Genin away on the stretcher, and the strange white-haired man that served as the proctor of the exam called out for the next match. Gaara of the Sand versus Tenten. Gaara sighed wearily. Konoha ninja. Of course. He shined into the arena. The girl tried to mentally unbalance him by talking, as if he needed an extra push. Gaara was generally unaffected by things like that, and doubly so ever since Mother's voice was muffled by the other Jinchuriki. He a couple of sand shuriken at her to shut her up and get this thing going. Kid, I didn't say start, yelled Jiraiya at him. Well, what are you waiting for? Gaara replied blandly, completely unintimidated by the older man's glare. Start. The girl was the type of an opponent that didn't stand a chance against him. Specializing in ranged weaponry and accuracy, even without his automatic defense, he could control his sand well enough to block all of her attacks. He threw kunai at him, his sand blocked. She threw shuriken at him, his sand blocked. She threw swords, sickles and other peculiar weapons at him, his sand blocked. She tried explosive notes, but the sand blocked those too. Gaara was actually somewhat amused. Where was the girl carrying those weapons anyway? She wasn't pulling them out of storage scrolls as far as he could figure out. She was like a walking armory. Finally the girl had enough and decided to use her ultimate technique. Gaara snorted. He would let her. He wasn't allowed to kill her, but he would show her just how useless she was against him. If he couldn't crush her body, he would crush her spirit. 2 storage scrolls twirled in the air, and a rain of metal objects crashed down on him. Or rather, his sand? He let the weapons fall down around him and then promptly scooped them up in his sand. The sand swirled around him until it settled into a shape of a ball, pushing the weapons into the center of the sphere. The ball of sand compressed violently, before spitting out a shower of mangled metal back at the girl. The shower of shrapnel was weak and unfocused, and most of the pieces fell short of Gaara's opponent. Those that flew far enough were dodged with only minor difficulty. But that was okay. He did this more for a psychological effect than actual combat utility. The girl was so shocked at the move she noticed too late when the sand beneath her feet swirled around her, encasing her in a cocoon of sand. Your attacks are useless, and so are you, Gaara stayed emotionlessly. I could crush you like I did your precious weapons, but I don't want your weak blood giving mother indigestion. Yield or I will slam your head against the ground until you pass out. I yield. The surrender was said in such a small voice, so full of disappointment and humiliation, that Gaara actually felt a bit sorry for his action, but only a little. He let the girl fall on the ground as the proctor proclaimed his victory, ignoring the green blur that picked the up girl and disappeared with her, as he slowly ascended the stairs to the viewing level. He deliberately passed next to the group of people gathered around Naruto and gave the blonde a long hard look. Azure eyes burning with fury glared at him in silence. It seemed Uzumaki wasn't very happy with how he handled the situation. Gaara snorted. He didn't kill her. That was all that was asked of him. Kurenai glanced at Asuma and was unsurprised to see annoyance on his face. Their little bet was nothing serious, the actual reward being little more than bragging right. But it was pretty unflattering to have all your genin knocked out in the preliminaries when the other 2 rookie teams both managed to send at least one of their members into the finals. Especially since none of the 3 put on an especially good showing. Ino lost spectacularly against Sakura. Choji lasted as long as he did against the guy clone that was Rock Lee only because the spandex-clad genin was reluctant to fully engage someone so obviously weaker, and Shikamaru. Shikamaru was Asuma's darling, lazy and laid back, just like his sensei, but supposedly a genius of the highest level. When the match between him and Naruto was called, Asuma clearly thought his favorite student can't lose. Perhaps if Naruto fought conventionally, that would have been true. But Naruto and conventionally rarely intersect. At the very start of the battle, Naruto threw a scroll on the ground, causing gallons upon gallons of water to gust out into the arena. Enough water flooded the entire arena up to the ankles. For Shikamaru, who apparently didn't know how to walk on water, this was troublesome all by itself, but Naruto coupled it by using said water to shroud the entire arena in thick, impenetrable mist. And then use needles coated in sleeping agent to incapacitate Shikamaru before he could get his bearings, Kurenai sighed. As amusing as this little bet was, she couldn't help but wonder what to do about Naruto. She and Anko were supposed to weasel the truth out of Naruto before this exam was done. The original plan was for them to wait for Naruto to get into the tower, and then confront him before the preliminaries. The idea was that the unfamiliar setting, coupled with the elation of being finally out of the dangerous forest, would catch Naruto off guard, making him more susceptible to interrogation techniques. A proper cocktail of drugs would also help, but it was an open debate between her and Anko about whether that was worth the fallout. Sadly, the plan was shot to hell at this point. Orochimaru had been spotted in the exam, and Anko had recklessly run off to confront him, nearly killing herself in the process. Even now she was lying in the hospital, stuck in a coma from which the doctors were not sure she would ever wake up. Naruto, for his part, nearly failed this portion of the exam, arriving at the last possible moment, and giving her no time to do anything. Naruto's easy victory would probably put Naruto in the good mood, but once he finds out what happened to Anko, and he will, regardless of whether she tells him or not, he always finds out about those kind of things somehow, his mood would take a sharp turn for the worse. Which meant she should corner him the moment these preliminaries end. But Kurenai wasn't sure the boy trusted her enough to open up to her without Anko's clear support. Perhaps she should wait and hope Anko wakes up before the finals? She did have a whole month until then. Relax, Hinata, I'm sure you'll do fine, Naruto said cheerily. I don't know, Hinata said hesitantly. I'm not. You are strong, interrupted Naruto. You've got nothing to worry about, Kurenai sighed. She knew exactly why Hinata was so afraid, despite the recent improvement in confidence. With so few contestants in the exam left, there was a big chance she'll end up fighting against him. Her cousin hated her with a passion, and he was both a year older than her and a prodigy in the gentle fist. I wish I could have your confidence, Hinata said quietly. You always sound so sure of yourself, as if everything's about to go right. Naruto was silent for a moment, before he gave her a painful smile that was obviously fake. Sometimes I even believe it as well, he said. Hinata frowned. What do you mean by that? Hyuga Hinata versus Hyuga Neji, yelled Jiraiya. Hinata's eyes widened in fear, her body going in rigid at the proclamation. What's wrong? Asked Naruto. And nothing, stuttered Hinata, before shaking her head and schooling her features. Nothing's wrong, she repeated in a calmer tone. She turned to leave towards the arena when she suddenly stopped and turned towards the blonde again. Naruto, after these preliminaries, would you go out on a date with me? Before she was even finished speaking, Kurenai could already see his answer was going to be negative. Kurenai suspected for a while that Naruto didn't share Hinata's feelings, and it was quite obvious now that she was correct. Naruto's grimaced in a mixture of shock and fear, before finally settling on an expression of regret and embarrassment. Hinata, I can't. It's alright, I understand, Hinata said with calmness that honestly surprised Kurenai. She thought that poor little Hinata would be devastated by this rejection. I won't give up though. You never gave up on me, even though everyone else dismissed me as weak and pathetic, so I won't give up on you either. I will grow strong and prove to you I am worthy of your affection. Now if you excuse me, I have a fight to win. And with that, Hinata descended down the stairs and into the arena, leaving an agitated Naruto behind. Kurenai supposed she should be angry at Naruto for refusing Hinata, but realistically speaking he was under no obligation to return her affections. And besides, he looked so lost at that moment, she just didn't have the heart to threaten him in any way. Neji and Hinata stood on the thin film of water covering the floor of the arena facing each other in silence that was reminiscent of the stare-off between Shino and Sasuke. Neji opened his mouth to say something, but Hinata chose that moment to strike. Wave after wave of paper blades sped towards Neji, who dodged each and every one of them with all the grace of a panther, edging closer and closer to Hinata with each successive attempt. It was obvious to Kurenai that her student was trying to keep Neji at bay, knowing she has no chance in a taijutsu battle, but it was equally obvious she was losing. Neji seemed preternaturally adept at evading inordinate amounts of throw projectiles, as if he had trained against just that sort of thing his whole life. Hinata slipped on the water for but a moment, and Neji was already upon her. Chakra-enhanced hands clashed with one another at blurring speeds, and Kurenai was surprised her student was able to last as long as she did. She was good, far better than Kurenai gave her credit for, but not good enough to match Neji. Hinata and Neji disengaged, Neji wearing a triumphant smirk and Hinata looking shocked. When did you? Hinata begun. It was child's play to close off your tenketsu, Neji said haughtily, probably more for the benefit of the audience than Hinata. Your proficiency with the gentle fist is as pathetic as the rumors say. You didn't even notice what I was doing until the very end. Give up. No, Hinata said frostily. Give up, said Neji more forcefully. I closed off all tenketsu in your arms. You cannot do gentle fist or perform any other ninjutsu. You lost. Be honorable enough to admit your loss. Must I really beat you into submission? Hinata raised her arms in front of her, and they were suddenly enveloped in a soft green light. Neji took a step back in shock. What is the meaning of this? He demanded. I was on the receiving end of gentle fist ever since I could walk, said Hinata. I have had my tenketsu closed off so many times I have learned how to unplug them with medical chakra. That's impossible, Neji proclaimed. Gentle fist deals so little actual damage when you get down to it, Hinata said. Precise, critical damage, but so easily healed. It is truly fortunate of our clan that medic needs are so rare outside of Konoha, Neji-san. Before Neji could say anything else, Hinata threw 2 stacks of blank paper notes into the air and flipped through a couple of hand seals. The notes stiffened and arrayed themselves into a dome around the other Hyuga, surrounding him completely. Surrender, Neji-san, Hinata said. I don't want to kill you, Neji sneered, even as Hinata brought her hands into the final seal and the paper blades rushed towards him. Kaiten. The blades impacted the blue spinning sphere and were instantly shredded into bits. Hinata looked in shock as bits and pieces of paper rained down all around her. Do you see now? Neji asked. You cannot defeat me. You cannot keep healing yourself forever. Sooner or later the sheer weight of your injuries will bring you low. Death from 1,000 paper cuts, as it were. Neji charged at her, but Hinata remained unmoving. Kurenai could see Neji hesitate for a second at her indifference towards his attack, but it was gone in an instant. Say striked. Instead of deflecting his hand like she did before, Hinata grasped his open palm with her own, intertwining her fingers with his own and using that leverage to yank him towards her. Shocked as he was at the maneuver, Neji didn't have time to react when she used his lack of balance to land a gentle fist strike at his stomach. Neji recovered quickly, yanking his arm free of Hinata's suddenly useless arm and jumping back. His feet wobbled, but he did not double over in pain like Kurenai would have expected. You sacrificed your arm just for this temporary victory? Neji breathed out. What a foolish maneuver. You forget, Neji-san, Hinata said, her lifeless arm suddenly enveloped in a soft green glow. Any damage I receive from you can be healed within seconds. The damage I took was temporary. The pain in your stomach will slow you down till the end of the match. Neji looked murderous. Do you see now? Said Hinata, mocking him with his own words. You cannot defeat me. I can afford to get hit. You can't. Neji started shaking before he charged again. Heal this, then. Kurenai watched in horror as Neji slammed his hand directly into the center of Hinata's chest, right where the heart was. The killing strike. Hinata stumbled backwards, her eyes wide with shock. She opened her mouth, as if to speak, but instead of words only blood came trickling down her lips. She collapsed face first into the shallow water, never to rise again.